My parents demanded we skip my graduation ceremony for church. That happens every Sunday. So I'm writing this because my college plans were uprooted as of Sunday, June 16th. I'll be graduating this week, and my ceremony is later this week. However, my church announced that they'll be doing their own graduation ceremony on July 7th, where they'll have church graduates walk down the aisle of the sanctuary during service to be recognized and receive prayer, and the pastor announced it on the 16th. By the way, this comes from Throwaway2381, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to r/Okie Storytime subreddit. So, according to my parents, he said it was important to make sure the next generation rooted their future in God. And the church will be having a barbecue after service in honor of the graduates. However, I haven't attended church since I was 16 due to an incident I'll explain later, but my parents seem hell-bent on making sure I attend not just the church graduation, but church from now on too. And they added strings to prior agreements that were never attached. Before the church graduation was announced, my parents agreed to split tuition with me to attend a community college upon me finding a job this summer. I plan to transfer afterward to finish my bachelor's. However, after the announcement, my parents said they weren't going to attend my graduation and that I wasn't allowed to either. A complete 180 out of nowhere. We even invited relatives to attend from out of state, but my parents already told them to attend the church graduation instead. And I feel like they pulled the rug from under me. When I said I still plan to attend my high school graduation with my friends, they threatened to rescind their offer to pay for college if I went and didn't come to the church one. And I just felt blindsided by this. When I tried to explain how they changed their mind out of nowhere, they said that the pastor talked about how people lost their way in college by disregarding faith and morals, so they weren't going to pay for me to go and change because of worldly influences. Yes, when people learn
about themselves and how they want to interact with the world instead of just being force-fed identity and beliefs.
But when I said that I would pay for tuition myself without them if I find a job, while still attending the high school graduation, they said they'd charge me rent starting in July, which is unfair because I've yet to find a job. So they said, you have to pay for school, and you're like, fine. And they're like, well, you're also going to have to pay for rent. So they're actively trying to make life harder for you.
Yeah, well, because it's not actually about like the school or rent. It's about control. They're literally just trying to control you.
I've been applying like crazy these past few weeks, and I have a few interviews lined up too. They're just trying to make me return to church after I stopped attending 2 years ago, and I've been really frustrated with their flip-flop. They've said they're doing this because they made mistakes in college before later finding God, and they didn't want me to make the same ones too. The last thing I'll add is this. I was bullied in that church in the past, and I reached my breaking point 2 years ago. The youth had a camp out on the grass behind the church where I was hazed by this really annoying girl, and no one did anything, including the assistant and chaperone in our tent. There were stupid pranks that were made in good fun, but the most hurtful thing was when that one girl made jokes and comments about my body and weight when we were changing that really hurt. And our tent chaperone did nothing when I told her afterward because she wasn't in there as we changed. This is just one of many things with this girl during youth group when leaders weren't looking, but that was the most hurtful. However, to my surprise, my parents took my side and didn't make me attend youth group after that, and they let me stop attending for the most part, to my surprise. I miss how they were reasonable in the past and hope they can be reasonable again with me here. Most of my relatives are also churchgoers and have agreed to attend the church graduation instead. And I just need advice because it all happens so fast, and it especially hurts that they don't want to attend my high school graduation.
Yeah.
But why would they go to the church graduation if you aren't going? It doesn't even make sense. Who are they going
for? You're supposed to go for these graduates. Who are you going for if your graduate is not going to be there?
My friends are in high school, and I don't consider anyone in our church's youth group to be my friend, so of course I want to graduate with my friends. But I can't pay rent in July as they're threatening because it's just a few days away, and I need advice on how to get through to them. And
all right, really
is
quick,
an update.
I mean, realistically, if OP doesn't pay rent, what are they going to do?
I guess it depends on how awful they are.
And how old is OP?
Presumably 18.
18? Or like, could it be like 17 going into 18?
Well, they're about to graduate, so.
What are the rules about kicking out your 18-year-old kid?
I mean, you can do it, unfortunately.
Can you?
Yeah, you can kick out.
Is there like squatters' rights or something, like?
They should, yeah. All you 18-year-olds, you need to learn about squatters' rights. But we're going to get into this update.
John, you've been dancing a lot.
I'm going to give you a live demonstration and you're going to see it too.
Show me those hips. Oh, damn. That is a good move. But you know what is also an amazing move?
What is that, Sam?
Becoming an OK Storytime member.
Yeah, that's freaking right. We have 60 plus hours of exclusive live streams on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
It's only $5 a month, so go to the link in our description, youtube.com/OKOP show/join.
Well, let's get back to the story.
I was unable to update sooner due to my phone being taken away. But I'll explain why. A few people suggested reaching out to some non-religious relatives to see if they could help or even provide shelter if they tried to throw me out. And I decided on my aunt after having no success with friends. I told my friends first about everything my parents threatened, but long story short, they talked to their parents who were unable to take me in, and they said it was last minute or mostly busy with their own things / graduations too. I then tried my aunt and told her everything too, and she said I could stay with her soon, but not in time for my high school graduation because it was really short notice. She said I could at some point this summer, and she wasn't initially coming to my graduation because she lives on the other side of the country, but she said she would try to talk some sense into my parents, and that led to my phone being removed. Oof. My parents didn't like that I told her because it was none of her business, according to them. I don't know what was said on the call, and they threatened to turn off my phone plan unless I gave them my phone. And I caved when they were yelling at me and gave it to them along with my laptop they wanted to. Because they threatened to punt me out sooner than July for talking about them to my aunt because she could tell others.
And now they're taking away OP's ability
Access to communicate.
to communicate with people and also get a job and have their. Again, this is all about control.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's different family dynamics, but if I had like a friend or a family member who was telling me that like their parents were taking away their ability to communicate and we're going to kick them out, I'd be like, come as soon as possible.
Yeah, and here's my computer.
Yeah.
Like, go on, I don't know, Indeed, look at some jobs right now.
They also said that they'd put my stuff outside while I was at the high school graduation if I attended.
Oh my God, they suck.
Well, then they wouldn't be at the church service.
They suck.
So they would punt me out that night instead of their original threat to start charging me rent in July. So for those reasons, plus another I'll say in a moment, I decided not to attend my high school graduation. Because I wouldn't be able to enjoy it. Honestly, for your safety, I think that unfortunately is the best move. However, I think as soon as possible, you need to leave these, like, get out of here.
I think from this moment, it's like, okay, I'm going to do what you say right now.
Yeah.
But essentially, they're kind of ending the relationship.
Absolutely.
Like this is a complete overstep. It's not fair.
No.
Oh man, OP, I feel bad for you. It sucks.
I was already having anxiety about what they do to my stuff while there, and I didn't want to be homeless when I returned. I also had a loss of motivation to do other things leading up to it, hobbies like sports, hanging out, or even watching TV. I knew I wouldn't enjoy it because I was already dreading it before it happened, and my anxiety there would be worse than the lead up. I also didn't want to wear a smile the whole time with none of my family in attendance either. And I didn't think I could hide it emotionally either. I also decided to attend the church graduation to get it over with, and I rationalized it like I did with other things growing up. I was forced to go to youth group and kids choir growing up, and I was forced to be baptized too. This was no different, just 5 minutes of the pastor calling all graduates on stage to pray for them, and they didn't even give us a gift like on Mother's Day, LOL. All my life, I've had to suck up things I hated at church, and the church graduation was less tedious than the pre-baptism classes. They were mandatory. Okay, so you probably got baptized older. Because it was only 5 minutes on stage compared to the 3 weeks of baptism classes. Some relatives came, gave me money from cards, and we ate lunch at a restaurant afterward, something we did when my dad was elected to a church position years ago, and invited friends to see him get installed before lunch afterward. I'm pretty used to the song and dance, and this was easier / shorter than other church BS. My parents also returned my phone after the church graduation, and a lot of anxiety lessened when I decided to skip my graduation. don't get me wrong, I'll always hate them for it, and I'm no longer accepting their help for college either, which I think, unfortunately, is the smartest thing.
Yeah, you don't want them to have like any kind of grip on you.
No.
But these, all right, I don't understand how a parent could just totally relinquish any desire to help their child, like to actively make your child suffer.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
By the way, you know what else is okay? Listening to full episodes with stories just like this. Just go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app and search up OK Storytime. And I also didn't notice that when did we get more time? But there is a little bit more to this story. So we're going to jump into it. I'm going to find a job, hopefully 2, if part-time, and try to move out over the summer if I can. And I won't talk to them again afterward. Because of their stress, I've decided to skip a once-in-a-lifetime event to prioritize my mental health because I wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway with the stress. And the fact that they're happy with me for obeying as they gave my phone back should allow me to find jobs without additional stress. They also withdrew their July rent threat, and everything's been peaceful since the church graduation, although I'll never forgive them for what they tried to do.
Yeah, use this as your moment to be self-sufficient because you don't want to be under their thumb like ever again.
I also expect them to threaten me with something else in the future too, so I hope to move out as soon as possible, even if it means staying with my aunt until finding a job. I'm glad she said I could stay with her, and hopefully the time until I do remains peaceful. Also, if you need a little extra income, maybe send out like a picture of yourself graduating to
and
all of your family.
My parents are kicking me out.
No, just say like, I graduated, and then people send you graduation money.
Did you do that?
We'll be at a party. But I feel like you could throw a party if you want, but you can also just be like, I graduated.
Oh, that could work. Oh man, OP, this sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, what job do you get like in college that could actually pay for?
Well, you can become an RA and get subsidized housing.
Yeah, so you get subsidized housing and
like a food budget and stuff. Yeah.
My father called me ungrateful after I cared for him during a medical crisis, so I exposed his affair.
As you should.
As you should.
He's ungrateful.
Fits the crime. This whole thing happened a year prior, but the repercussions are still happening. And I hope they continue until the day that tar dies.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa.
This will be long, so buckle in. Now this is a story. Background. Growing up, me and my sister had no love towards our father whatsoever. I'm not going to bore you with the details of a boozaic, violent man, but there are a few details that come to mind. So, by the way, this comes from Thunderkirk on the r/OK Storytime subreddit. So, when my sister got accepted into a much better but also further high school than our local one, she moved immediately and rarely visited. So, she's no longer there. We were 10 years apart, and I was 4 at the time. I grew up resenting her for leaving me to deal with this BS all by myself. But now I understand better, and we're on good terms.
Yeah, I feel like when you get older, you realize, we were both in a bad situation.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, also like I saw this meme of a guy going off to like college and leaving his like abusive household, and then there's and then he's like going off, and then he looks down, and it's his little brother like looking up at him.
So a meme?
A meme. Yeah, it was like a sad meme.
Like a comic?
No, it was like a little like TikTok video. But yeah, no, I think that's like, it's tough to like leave like a sibling all alone to deal with it alone.
Yeah.
But now I understand better, and we're on good terms. My local factory was so big that it supported my whole town. Virtually everyone worked there, so everyone knew each other. My parents too. But then it was purchased by the Defense Ministry and decided to cut off anyone without at least a high school degree. My mother was let go, and this was after she'd had me for 4 months. So basically, like everyone in this town is losing their jobs, including Opie's mother. My father, however, made it until retirement and was granted military status. Basically, they gave him an honorable rank, so his pension would almost double, but also you have to act accordingly because, in terms of speaking, you're military personnel now. My childhood was an absolute nightmare, so needless to say, I turned out to be an absolute mess. Anger management and mental instability are notably the worst, and I'm still working on them. Well, when I turned 18, I enlisted. I feel like I'm confused by that because it's like you had this like very hard upbringing, seemingly maybe like spurred by the military? You're like, I'm going to enlist too.
Well, I mean, if it's what you know.
It's true.
And also you get benefits from it.
Yeah.
And if you've had kind of that hard life and you don't have that support system, a lot of people do tend to go into the military to get that.
Yeah. Military does support you unless it kills you.
Until you're out of the military.
Until you're out of the military, and then it will just put you on the streets. 2 major benefits. It didn't cost money, and I could never come home if I didn't want to. For me, it was literally a highway out of hell. Fast forward 3 years later, I got an honorable discharge. Turns out I had mental problems, actual mental problems. Who would have known? I got a bulk load of money and even more in the following months when they were able to process my military insurance. Came home to find my town incredibly underwhelming. And my father hadn't changed a bit, and this father was no good.
Yeah.
I took what I could and moved to the city where my sister was living. The last words my dear old dad said to me was, "You'd never make it," because apparently being discharged for a mental illness showed that I was a coward.
Your dad sucks.
Also, I think he didn't like that I was tougher than the boy who used to obey his every word that I once was when I stood up for myself more in the few weeks I stayed with him than the entire 18 first years of my life. So at least OP is now like sticking up for himself.
Yeah, he's like, you can't push me around. I went to the freaking military.
Yeah. I moved to a new environment, took up a blue-collar job. I was pretty beefy thanks to the military, and decided to pursue a career in IT, all the while taking care of my mental health. All right, now this is when it all started.
Ooh,
so now we're getting even into the deeper tea.
Juicy. Let's dive in.
We're wading into the tea. So sometime during this time, he got diagnosed with cancer. I was told it wasn't dangerous, but operations were required. My sister had actually reconciled with him partly because of my mother a few years prior and would occasionally bring my niece home to visit them. She was quite successful, so she decided to pay for the whole thing. Operations, treatment, hospitals, recoveries, it was all hers. She paid for this while moving into a new house and buying her first car, though things are pretty expensive in my country. My father had a huge bank account because of his pension, but he didn't have to pay a single penny. Yeah, I'm confused why they didn't let him pay if he had so much money.
Yeah.
Like why is there
probably
why
like
are
some
your
sort of
kids
military
paying
insurance.
for it? But yeah, he has military insurance and he has a huge bank account pension. Like why is his
maybe she just she felt responsible or something? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. So after a year or so of recovery, all in all, things were good. All right, so he's recovering. During this time, I was struggling with working and studying, living paycheck to paycheck, and had to rely on a social program to get treatment for my illness. I visited him after every operation, though it wasn't anything tearful. If he didn't poke me, I was fine. So apparently everything was fine. Maybe he learned from his cancer to not being such a a-hole.
Well, sometimes people have, life
near-death
experiences and
change people every once in a while.
Possibly.
After nearly a year of staying at my sister's house, he and my mother headed home after his doctor gave him a go. At the time, I was looking for a new job because the current one was horrible and made my mental health actually worse. And I was lucky to find one where most of my skills were transferred and I had enough time to finish my studying. One day, my mom called in tears and asked me to come home that weekend. She told me that my father had been seeing someone else while getting cancer treatment.
Dang, he's got some moves.
That's crazy.
He's
that's
that
like
movie
Steven
with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, where Joseph Gordon-Levitt has cancer.
Yeah, and shaves his head.
Yeah, but he uses it to flirt with people.
And it's very effective.
And it's successful.
Yeah. Or like Stephen Hawking, flirting with his nurse and successfully cheating on his wife, even though he couldn't move. Like he could wink an eye.
Oh, he can move something all right.
Yeah. Is that crazy?
Can't imagine.
Yeah, dude.
But this is like Uno reverse, because usually the spouse has cancer and the other spouse is cheating.
Yeah.
You don't get to have cancer and cheat.
You can't do
Cancer
both.
Can't do that.
Riz. Faith Belling says cancer riz. That is true. A man's got some cancer riz. That feels weird saying. I don't know. I don't know about that. Now, I must admit, I'd not put anything behind this man, but then I thought she was paranoid. She still is, up to this day, about everything. And I resented the thought of going home on a 4-hour trip, both just for something that's utterly unimportant. So I calmed her and swept it under the rug. Fast forward a few months, I got another call, this time from my sister. She came to visit that week with my niece to inform them that she was 3 months pregnant.
Whoa.
What was supposed to be a happy union turned into an absolute crap show. Apparently, When my father left his phone unattended for a few minutes, his mistress sent him a very spicy picture, and my mom saw it pop up.
Man.
Needless to say, all heck broke loose.
What was he sending back? Just like, he's like, hey, in the hospital ward.
Yeah, I think this might be right after.
Oh, he's not.
Yeah, I don't think I think he's cleared now, but I think the cheating might have begun while he was in the hospital ward.
How? How did he meet this girl?
Maybe it was his nurse. Yeah, she was sticking the chemo needle in him, and he was sticking his needle in her.
That's gotta be illegal, right?
What?
If you're like a nurse, to
have spicy sleep with your patients?
I don't know. It happened a lot in Grey's Anatomy, but I
yeah,
feel like Grey's Anatomy is
nurses,
maybe
let
not
us know.
the-
Is that illegal?
Yeah.
Needless to say, all heck broke loose. My sister said that was the first in many years that she saw my mother scream bloody stabby stab at my father.
What if you just said a lot?
And when he tried to give her the old 1-2, my sister threw
No,
herself
but she's pregnant.
in between, which prompted her husband to throw himself in between because, she's 3 months pregnant. It all ended in a very teary trip back to our city after hours of hurling insults at each other. The only good thing that came out of it was my mother somehow was able to bring his phone with her. We convinced my mother to get a divorce. Okay, at least that's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, he sounds like an awful man. But she's the submissive housewife who thought divorces were worse than boiling live puppies, and I think back then she's still somewhat hoping that he'd turn around. They've been together for almost 35 years at this point, so I figured something must have been there. She didn't want it, so we dropped it and decided to cut him out for good.
Good.
Lo and behold, half a year later after the incident, my father's side of the family started to contact me. I have a strict no-call policy where the only people allowed to call me outside of work hours are my mother, my sister, her husband, 3 of my best friends, and only recently, my boyfriend.
Whoa, it's getting serious.
So to my bamboozlement, my father, his sister, my aunt, his mother, all called within a day. They suddenly acted so nice and convinced me to come visit them. All right, I'm a little suspicious. Obviously, that was all a ruse. After the incident, my father's side blamed my mother and said she should have kept it a secret and not made a mess for the family's sake. Maybe the father, OP's father, shouldn't have cheated and made a mess for the family's sake.
I hate when the person who's the messenger.
Yeah.
Don't pew the messenger. They're just trying to spread the word. If we unalive Paul Revere for letting everyone know that the British were coming,
we wouldn't have America.
we wouldn't have America.
America would be done.
And that is a point that stands for this story as well.
Agreed. Yeah. I can't believe they're getting mad. They're getting mad at the wrong person here.
Oh, I see.
They also disavowed me and my sister because we were ungrateful brats after we did not accept their ultimate argument. He's your father, after all.
Of course.
He's blood. He's a blood. Out of morbid curiosity, I ventured back home alone to see what it was about. Turned out they wanted to sell his house. It was on my grandmother's land back when he was about to undergo his first operation. Oh my God. We didn't know how it would turn out, so we transferred the house to my name because apparently inheriting a person's estate in my country is a living nightmare. Out of convenience, we convinced my grandmother to give me the land as well since she was very old, 80 at the time. This was back when we were on good terms. I knew for sure they would rather gorge their eyes out. Wow, Opia is away with morbid words. Than follow up with any of that if it had happened a year later. Well, I smelt something in the air. Couldn't place it, but I knew it was there. So I told them nicely that I would think on it and immediately went back to faking an emergency. A plan formed when I was driving back. And that's the first time I've been so pleased about anything. I actually cracked a smile. I'm imagining the Grinch smiling,
Yeah.
Very, very excited.
Mm.
And do you know what OP's dastardly plan could be?
I haven't a hoot. I don't see yet.
That's the face that I'm imagining right there.
Yes, it's the curling up.
Yes. Riley got it.
So OP was at their house, was talking to them about getting this. Right now we have like kind of an inheritance thing going on. Is that the issue here?
So OP was given this house, and I think the family was being all nice to OP.
But they knew it was a lot of like hassle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But so what happened was OP's dad had this house on their grandmother's land.
Yeah.
because they were unsure what was going to happen with OP's dad, wasn't sure if he was going to live or die, they gave it to OP to kind of hold on to. And now they're like cozying up to OP to try to get the house.
And OP's like, I've got a dastardly plan,
Yeah.
a plot.
Yeah, so and also now OP has the land too. So OP has the house and the land from the grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of like OP owns everything. This was back when they were on good terms. And they're trying to get the house back, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because they wanted to sell his house.
And the mother is already dead, correct?
No, mother's not.
No.
No one's died.
Everyone's alive.
Everyone's alive.
Well, I'm just saying to get out of some taxes, they should set up a trust and then put the house into the trust so they don't have to pay taxes on the house whenever someone dies.
Well, I think
I don't think this is in the U.S.
Yeah, it's not in the U.S., but also I think they put it in OP's name because they knew that it would be all of this hassle and stuff if he passed away.
Yes,
like the inheritance
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they were trying to get
do
around
the
that. But
thing,
now
yeah.
OP just has all of this.
Yeah.
So I cracked a smile and I went to my sister's immediately. My mom had been staying with her and I laid out a plan. After a year living in the city, my mom was much more open-minded and it only took a few convincing for her to agree to the plan. Faith Belling says he gives it to his mom or something. I honestly have no idea what the plan could be.
I haven't the foggiest.
Idea of this plan. So my sister contacted a lawyer and asked what our options were. Because both the house and the land were in my name, they had no claim to them, and any paper that didn't have my signature on it would be considered useless under the law. They could try and claim it was rented out, but then they'd have to move far away and hope that I'd never be able to locate them. And I knew it'd be too much trouble for a couple of old folks. They could claim it's his life achievement because he and my mother never divorced. It's technically half hers as well. This, however, is when I came up with an idea. I asked the lawyer, what if my mother filed for divorce? He said it's highly unlikely the court would reward my mother's full claim unless we could prove that he was unfaithful before the separation. To his surprise, I could. OPS receipts.
Ooh.
What?
Remember
Wait,
the-
because they took a phone.
Yeah, remember the phone that my mother
With the
brought
spicy
back in
pizza?
that day?
It!
It was smashed during the fighting, but generally still in one piece. She asked me to throw it away a few days later after my lazy A just brought it back to my place and threw it in the loft. Sufficient to say it provided us with more than enough proof of his indecency.
Nice.
Being lazy pays off.
Sometimes got to be lazy to win.
To win. We got the execution now. So, after weighing our options, I called to inform my father that I would come home the next month to make an announcement. He was eager to hear it. Upon my arrival, they were so nice and sweet and whatnot. But after I introduced my lawyer, it's like they flipped a switch and suddenly became vile and violent. I presented him with two options: relinquish any claim to the house or be served with a lawsuit. In my country, marital violations are 6 months probation minimum, up to 2 years in prison.
Riley, can you look up what country that is?
Yep.
Yeah, look up the country. Why do they never want to tell us what country it
Just
is?
tell us. You think that we're going to find you in your country?
Yeah, come on.
Unless you're like, your country's 10 people.
Yeah, maybe if it's
Could be really
Vatican
hard.
City, maybe we could find you. But other than that, probably not.
Watch it. This is actually the Pope writing.
Yeah, dude. Pope's got tea.
Yeah, the Pope
you
is
know all
a-
the confessions he hears.
The Pope is a queer man with tea, according to the story.
I mean, probably true.
I mean, according to the
I
story.
I don't know if he's a queer man, but he definitely has tea. I mean, he's listening.
He's got tea.
He's listening to a lot of stuff.
India, Middle East, Asian cities, European cities.
Okay, man,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
too many.
After a lot of screaming and name calling and feet stomping tantrums, he kicked us out. So naturally, I assumed he chose the latter. At the first hearing, so the hearing of the court, my mom, me, and my lawyer were present. It turned out to be another screaming contest in which he made up all kinds of lies about my mother. At some point, my lawyer leaned in to tell me that if the officer didn't stop his rantings, it's likely they were buddies and asked me to let him handle things.
So they're saying that the dad is ranting at the mom and being like, "Rah, rah, 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 rah," and the officer isn't doing anything. And so
Yeah.
the lawyer's like, they're probably.
In cahoots. The officer told us this case wasn't a priority and it would take months to process. We wouldn't like the paperwork. It's best to settle this out of court. So yeah, the officer that is conducting the court hearings and the father are in cahoots with each other. My lawyer politely declined and told my father to expect another hearing soon under much less friendly circumstances. He tried one more tactic in between, which was calling all the relatives and telling them how my mother was a B and I was an ungrateful brat in hope of creating some kind of pressure on us. Very few of them took his side, and even if all of them did, I would have never let him get off that easy. In the second hearing, he finally cracked and agreed to my terms, which were relinquishing any claim he might have with the house and divorcing my mom. So those are the two stipulations.
Ooh.
Basically, the only person who has any claim to the house now is my mother.
Slay.
I agreed to let him keep living in it for the rest of his life, though, but not anyone else, aka his mistress, who he was basically living with.
So now he's just kind of like a renter.
Yeah.
In this place.
Yeah.
But
Which honestly is kind of nice of OP to let that happen.
Very considerate after how he treated everyone.
I feel like you could like kick him out for what he's been doing.
Yeah.
Completely. Okay, and now the revenge, because that wasn't revenge enough.
No. Right.
All right, OP's going in.
Opie's got it all
going
planned
in.
out. That's what the military gives you. Organization.
Yeah, that it does. Exactly.
Military. These are military tactics.
So this was where my work started. First, my sister gathered all the receipts from all the medical billings she has paid for his treatment. A few of them were missing, but we were able to put up a huge folder. I also crapped my pants learning how expensive cancer treatment could be. Not a fan. When we had a general sum of the money, we billed him for it. This is very unethical in my country since children are expected to take care of their parents, but we threw that out the window long ago. We also knew it was not a criminal case, so we just went to small court claims and then sent in the bailiffs to collect, which was just this lady. She went on with a I don't give an F attitude when he failed to comply. She sent in the thugs, by that I mean police, to start seizing assets. So I guess like they're like the father can't pay all of the cancer treatment, even though the sister started paying, and so the government's just seizing their shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it seems like they're charging him for all of this stuff.
Yeah.
The sister is.
Say goodbye to the wooden furniture, a 27i, smart TV, a fridge, reclining massage chair, all were bought by my sister as well. He had to pay out of pocket because that lady insisted they continue seizing whatever he bought until she saw the money. Although the final amount was halved, my mother, under the eyes of the law, shared half of that for some reason, so half of the debt. It still cost him 70% of his savings. Of course, this wasn't about the money. We were just petty.
No, I think what happened here is that the OP's sister was charging him for the costs. That's what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like, because it sounds like she sued him or something, and then they basically took all of his assets to pay for it. That's what it sounds like to me.
But I guess like what? Yeah, the government is seizing it on their behalf.
Yes, to pay for the sister. Yes.
But yes, the government is seizing on behalf of the sister because, like, I guess she paid for all of that stuff, but I guess because she paid for it under the pretenses.
She's basically like, she's billing him stuff.
Yeah. I'm confused what that court case would be because she willingly paid.
Yeah, I also am confused. I don't know how she would be able to get that money when she did, she willingly paid for it.
Looking back, I should have taken the recliner because my back hurts like a bee, even though I'm only in my late 20s. But after that was done, I contacted my local factory to file a report. Remember the sweet pension he got with the condition that he behave accordingly? Well, clearly someone had been a bad boy and they let him go with it, even though it was a small town and everyone knew everything because nobody ever filed a report. But that's not the case anymore. I gave them a very detailed folder with pictures from his phone to say they were spicy sleepule was an understatement.
So there's kind of a morality clause for the military pension.
They immediately set up a hearing and he was stripped of his rank, making his pension down to just over half the original amount. I know this because old folks gossip like their lives depend on it, and my mother is not excluded. She was very happy hearing about that. It's all she talked about for a month. I was about to be done here, but a week later, my sister called to tell me that my aunt came to her door to berate her and her children. My sister was working from home. My mom also lived there, but had gone out for some reason. My sister just called security to kick her out and warned me she could go for me next. I was seeing blood, not because of some lame booty Karen that could cause some inconvenience at most, but because she was screaming at my niece and nephew. As a gay man, I know full well the bloodline ends with me, so I put all of my love into those little guys to the point that if I had been there, I would have bitten her head off. So I dug a little around and found out my aunt was knees deep in debt. She was hoping,
stop.
Yeah, she was hoping she could leech some money off my father. It's not from the money he made selling the house, then from his big bank account. Since neither of those was available anymore, she was angry and thought she could lay it on my sister. You want to know what a man could do with determination and raging hatred? Well, I never set up an online social presence, mainly because up to my 18th birthday, I was too poor to have a phone, and then the military taught me it wasn't needed. But for a special occasion, I made an exception. I created a Facebook account, befriended her. I didn't even have to pretend to be anyone, since old people apparently accept friend requests from anyone.
Now he's catfishing
She
this
had
woman?
this vibe where she'd throw off her money and her vacations and her items like a wealthy person. From my mother and her trusty gossip circle, I knew that she always told whoever she owed money that she was struggling, so I figured out she must be blocking them. The next part was easy. I just had to send all of the selfies to everyone she's owing to. I didn't have to declare myself since I was literally on a throwaway account, so it's just this really long line of messages that showed my aunt spending her money lavishly. For the next following month, she was threatened not with legal actions like I did, but with much more sinister actions. She would have thugs, not the police, throw gifts at her door, like paint, fish sauce, and sometimes literal crap.
Dude, this chick is gonna end up on the Squid Games.
Oh my God. Is OP going too far?
Wow. Because we were like, oh, that's nice that OP let his dad live in the house, even though he's treated him so badly.
I mean, it seems
And
like
then
OP's trying to get this person
OP's
unalived.
No, we don't stop here. We keep going. I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know.
I think
OP
it's a
is
little bit too
systematically destroying everyone who messed with him.
much. Yeah.
Because the line here is getting justice for his mom getting cheated on, but now he's
Yeah.
getting all the justice that is available to him, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's a little
Yeah.
bit too much. But I would love to know what you guys think. Yeah, put your
Yeah.
answers in the chat. But
Just insofar as
Feels-
that he's
feels a little bit
Karina
too much.
says he's going too far. He's putting her in danger.
yeah.
Mm.
She finally figured out what I was going to do when I told her to find me a list of all the people she's owing to. Oh my God. And now there's the pro revenge.
That wasn't the pro revenge. I hope that I never get on OP's bad side.
Oh my God.
What?
As much as I want to take credit for this, the idea wasn't mine. Forgive me, for I once again had to lay out a bigger background. So, my father's side of the family is this very traditional family where you would have a person acting as the head of the family, deciding things that matter. This was way before the war, so obviously they don't do such things anymore. I imagine the Vietnam War. But the head of the family still has a certain voice, and there's this once-in-a-year ceremony where we gather together to pay tribute to our ancestors. During the ceremony, the head of the family will give a speech and then some announcements like who died, who got married, who gave birth, etc. Then there will be a celebratory party where we basically get wasted. My great-grandfather was the head. He had 3 sons, and 2 of them passed away during the war. So my grandfather took the mantle, then my father, and eventually me. The whole side of the family is in another town that's like 3 hours away, mainly because my grandfather didn't expect to be the head, so he moved out seeking opportunities. I found these gatherings redundant and unnecessary, but that year I was actually looking forward to it, probably for the revenge. My father tried to keep the actual date hidden. It wasn't fixed, but generally somewhere between June. But he seriously underestimated my mother. She doesn't have a gossip circle. She has an infinite number of them. So my mother, me, and my sister's family all head back for it. The trip is 14 hours in total, but the result was so worth it. We timed it so we would come 2 days earlier than my father. Again, thanks to her gossip circle, I guess getting all the information.
She's got like a whole.
She has her little birds throughout the city.
She's like a rat king. She's collecting all these secrets.
Yeah. This side of the family had never heard the full story, only the version my father gave them, which was that he had left my mother in good faith. I actually gave my father some credits for not bad-mouthing my mom. After weighing all the pros and cons, we decided to let my mother loose. And she's exceptional when it came to relaying details about her personal tragedies. I kid you not. If I posted her story word for word, by the time next week, there would be a global justice for Thunderkirk's mother movement. It took just one day, for everyone to know what an a-hole my father had been. The look on his face when he arrived with my aunt and my grandmother and saw my family already there was priceless. He got the stink eye from everyone for the rest of the day. Nobody would initiate conversations with him, so he's just sitting there like a sad dog. Now I know what they say about passed away horses, but the idea was brilliant not to follow through.
I don't think OP ever wastes an opportunity to
get revenge.
To beat a passed away horse.
Oh my God. My uncle, let's call him Oliver, came up with this, and the hierarchy is equal to my father. In the event that my branch doesn't have a male successor, 100% what's going to happen, his branch will be the head of the family. He told me I should take up the mantle of the head. It was very sudden. I didn't have a speech ready. My father was supposed to do that, but Oliver told me I could just tell whatever I want because nobody really paid attention to that thing anyway. All the other elders were okay with it. The speech wasn't even the best thing. At the celebratory party, people will be assigned tables based on the family tree. Heads of each branch will sit together. Their children sit together. The elders sit together, so on and so forth. This sounds very royal. This sounds intense, like the familial dynamic. Because I was elevated to the head of my branch, I would be sitting at the big boy table. My father didn't even get to sit at that supposed table because miraculously it was full, even though I could have sworn there weren't 20 of us, and each table can sit up to 10. He had to sit at a regular table with my aunt and a bunch of nasty widows who didn't hold back their snarky comments. So I was told. I didn't think he'll ever come back to one of those anytime soon.
I'm kind of...
So OP was kind of promoted in the family.
I do think it's funny, though, that was the pro revenge. Because that does seem more tame than all of the other revenge.
Yeah, dude. The other revenge was like catfishing everyone.
The normal revenge, I catfished my aunt and people might unalive her now. And the, pretty good revenge was getting the law to take all of my dad's assets from him. But the pro revenge was making my father sit at a different table.
Yeah, I don't think that's
we should reorganize that.
Yeah, I think we should reorganize that. But
it might be a cultural thing.
I think it might be.
That's true. Maybe
I think it might be really important.
Maybe getting threatened by the mafia is not as bad as getting demoted in your familial dynamic.
Yeah, because in the Southern Baptist Church, if you don't sit where you usually sit, people get irritated. They're like, oh, that's like my seat, but they don't say anything and they kind of be passive aggressive.
But we still got a little bit more to the story.
Let's run it.
The aftermath. My father is now just a miserable old man. His mistress left him because, surprisingly, she was after his money. He's living in our old house with next to nothing. His retirement money, though halved, was good enough for him to live by. And last I heard, his cancer has come back. And obviously, this time my sister won't be paying for it anymore. He had tried to initiate contact with my mother, trying to make amends. We had to block his number and his profile on my mother's account because she actually considered it. She has her soft side. My aunt, which OP definitely does not have. My aunt has to sell her house to pay all the debt, or else they just continue harassing her. She now lives in a small house she bought off with the rest of her money. I felt bad for her husband because he's actually chill and quite nice, but he's not the most decisive, and therefore he doesn't really confront her. I hope he's doing better. I have no empathy for her only son, though. Damn. Let's just say the apple doesn't far fall from the tree. So how do I know all this? My mother's gossip circle.
Of course.
I left my grandmother out of this because she's very old. She's not demented in any way. She's perfectly sane, but she loved her son too much to admit he's in the wrong. Also, she was very nice and sweet to me growing up. A lot of my good memories are with her. I'm sad because he doesn't see my mother the same. I also stopped talking to her and would only visit once during Lunar New Year. She's lived in the small house she and my grandfather built on the land that's now in my name. When she and my father are passed away, I will carry out their wish to build an altar for her and my grandfather. Whether or not my father will be included is still up for debate. Just to clarify, all of this wouldn't have happened if he acted in good faith. He could have called all of us back, announced that he'd be leaving my mother, and I wouldn't have given a dang. Instead, he tried to scream and punch his way through it, and I acted in response. Also, I deleted that Facebook account. I'm crazy, but not that crazy. By the way, if you want to be crazy about us, you can listen to full episodes of this podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. You can listen while doing other things. You can hear our voices at all times. So just look up OK Storytime wherever you get your podcasts. There's another relevant update, but dang, OP is getting getting their revenge.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to see that 84% of chat did not think that was too far.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Man,
Chat's like,
man.
they only got death threats? Like,
Yeah.
that's not enough.
It's not enough.
That's not enough.
Man, I mean, like, to be clear, obviously the people that received this, revenge or this vengeance, they weren't great. They weren't good people. They were bad people, but
Yeah.
it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
Dutch Cassandra says, I'm Vietnamese of origin, but never lived there. Thank goodness. All the BS they have to deal with is toxic AF. I am not Vietnamese either, but I know. Surprising, Sophia. But I did go on a solo travel through Vietnam, and I met this girl in a coffee shop that I hung out with for a little bit while I was there. And she wanted to leave her town and explore, but she felt like she had to live with her mother and take care of her. There's just an intense duty to family there.
Familial thing.
Yeah, which I can understand why, in the context of all that, why getting demoted might be pro-revenge rather than just revenge.
It's like getting excommunicated from the church.
Exactly. But we got a little bit more to this story. So, also about the small court claim. As I've mentioned, these kinds of claims are highly unethical in my country, so the law is also very slippery. You just have to prove that someone owes you money or for something. It doesn't have to be big. I made it sound easy, but in reality, we had to go through 3 different hearings. The judge advised us to settle out of court, the first 2 since my father wasn't present. The whole thing took almost a year before a claim was rewarded. My sister gave birth to my nephew around this time. In short, we found a loophole and utilized it. Also, yes, I'm Vietnamese.
Woo!
Infidelity is definitely a crime here. In
Boom.
fact, it's the first time I've heard it's not a crime somewhere else. So thank you, Reddit, for the newfound knowledge. Also, clearly, this wasn't a spur of moment thing. I have thought about it, what we should do if things got messy, but nothing concrete because of my mother's approval.
Opie's thought about everything.
We didn't wake up and decide to scorch the earth. We planned.
We planned. We planned and plotted to scorch the earth.
Oh man. Wow. That was intense. OP went ham.
Yeah, OP went scorched earth.
Yeah.
For sure.
Shout out OP for giving us a good story.
Good story to start the stream off.
Yeah.
Man, oh man.
But we got another story in this episode. My father demanded I pay for the house he bought for his stepdaughter. So I went off on him.
If it's not your house, you don't have to pay.
So a few years ago, I posted about how my father cheated on my mother. Coming out the gate strong, a little cheating, always hurt somebody. And how I retaliated to him financially and socially. Wait.
What?
Is this from the same person?
No.
This is from the same person.
It's from the same person?
This is an update.
What?
This is an update. So that last one was from a few years ago. This is an update.
It's about the house.
A few years ago, I posted about how my father cheated on my mother and how I retaliated against him financially and socially. Again, this is related to that last story. This is an update from the last story. This will serve as somewhat of an update, as there have been developments ever since. For those who want to go back and read the post, I have some good news. About 5 months after I posted the story, my cousin reached out. He had been fired from his job, but he had met a wonderful girl, and that really changed his perspective. By the way, this comes from Thunder Kurg on the r/OK Storytime subreddit. So, growing up, he was an only child, and his parents were rich enough he didn't need to care about school. While I and my sister thrived academically, he made no effort to even try to graduate from high school. As being a legacy, it meant that he would always have a place in the local plant, the one that's big enough to support the entire town. That was until he found out how his family was struggling financially. His mom had spent all their savings to keep an unnecessary lavish lifestyle, and the local plant, after 3 decades, decided to stop hiring people without a degree or a trade certificate, legacy or not. My cousin was working as a bus operator at the time, but got let go and couldn't find a job, and that's when this girl changed his life.
So this is the cousin that OP said he didn't like.
Yeah, this is cousin that was like, it doesn't fall far from the tree.
Got you.
Well, she pointed out how helpless he was, being a golden child, not having to do anything growing up, and he listened to her. He reached out trying to make amends, and I and my sister accepted it.
Whoa.
He went back to community college, got a degree, and started working at the plant late August. That's one relationship saved. At his wedding, my aunt also wanted to make amends. She had a falling out with my father, and perhaps her son had talked some senses into her, so she reached out and wanted to talk. Now, we're much more reserved about this one because knew her antics so well, but she was quite genuine and understanding when we said we couldn't let her back into the grace as easily as her son, the good graces. We went low contact for a while. She's made efforts to be friendly to my niece and nephew and never showed signs of any malicious intent. So it seems like 2 for 2, relationships kind of getting better.
OP's winning. The revenge turned around and bloomed flowers.
Mm-hmm. We're still keeping a short leash, but I want to believe that people can change. And so far, she's not given me any reason to think otherwise. That's 2 for 2. The third is my grandmother. She's 85 this April. Among the grandchildren, I am closest to her. So it pained me to have to go low contact with her since our last interaction. She had also had a falling out with my father because he was trying to get her to sign over her estate. Maybe a story for another time, but she was having none of it. So they fought. In the end, he went AWOL. They did not see each other for over a year until he showed up at my cousin's wedding. At said wedding, my father made an effort of avoiding me and my sister, but approaching my brother-in-law to brag that he bought a house and that he has his mistress living in it. We did not think much of it because his pension is hefty. To those who read my previous post, even though it went down 40%, it's still almost as double that of my aunt. So he can pretty much afford like anything. But then, after we're on talking terms, my aunt let it slip that he had to take a loan to pay for that. So it's maybe not as much as he thought because he's going into debt or loan debt getting the house.
But he was originally living in OP's house or like
but that was too small.
House.
He wanted something big.
Well, but also I don't think he's allowed to live with his mistress there.
No,
either. So
that's why I guess he had to get a new place. But his name is not on the deed. It's the oldest son of the mistresses instead. So he's kind of using the mistress's son to get the loan. At this point, we figured that he's being scammed, but not our problem. Because of a series of incidents at my job, I was offered a much more secure and high-paying position. I will admit that this is truly an opportunity I thought I'd never have for at least another 3 years, but perhaps one can only have so many tragedies. With the raised salary, my mom's money from divorce, and my sister's help, I was able to put a down payment for a house for me and my mother, even though the housing market in my city was as crazy as ever. Even though I'm now eyeballs deep in debt, I'm proud of myself for having a house to my name. My father didn't contribute anything, and frankly, I didn't want to take anything, even if he had asked. Around late November of last year, my childhood friend, with whom my cousin and I are very close, passed away from a car accident. It was very sudden. My cousin called me at 2 a.m, and before I knew it, I was home for his funeral. Needless to say, I was in a bad place mentally leading up and following his funeral. So I decided to move back home until after Lunar New Year, which is 2 weeks away. Take care of my grandmother, but I was also hoping the change of scenery would do me some good. My mother stayed to look after the kids. My sister's house is literally within walking distance from mine, so she'll be fine. And 7 days after said funeral, my father shows up at my doorstep. I was very much still grieving, so I was in no mood to play games. I shut down any effort at pleasantries and just stared at him while he mumbles about traveling or some crap. Then he told me that his mistress's second child, a girl, is attending college in my city next summer and suggested we meet and be friends. I just laughed and told him to F off. That's when he brought up the house. Apparently, the precious little stepdaughter doesn't want to stay in a college housing campus, nor does she want to share an apartment with friends or other renters. She wants a whole house for herself. That's crazy. In the middle of the worst housing economy in our country's history. Of course, having taken a loan for the house he bought for his stepson, he could never afford buying a house in the capital city where prices go up by the hour. In an attempt to please his mistress, he came to me asking for money. I kid you not. This man literally dropped my sister off in a foreign city and told her to fend for herself when she went to go to college for the first time. And now he wanted to bend over backwards for a child that isn't even his, while asking for money from his son, who he loudly claimed that he'd rather see passed away. I truly can't comprehend the gears in his geek head.
What?
Little did he know, he poked me at the worst moment possible. Uh-oh. You don't want to poke OP. OP will go.
No.
I was still grieving from a lost friend, and I ripped him a new one, detailing things I didn't even know where it came from. I was mentally checked out when my mouth did the work, and towards the end, I cracked my voice a little. He tried to argue a bit, but after my aunt and cousin showed up, they live nearby, he bolted. Last month, I haven't heard from him since. Not that I care anyway. Work is busy and I have Lunar New Year to prepare for. By the way, you can prepare for listening to us every single second of every day by just going to our podcast and typing OK Storytime wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can listen while doing other stuff.
True dat.
But there's a little relevant update that I'm just going to drive right into.
Oh, I was just going to say really quick, kind of shocking that the dad was like, I know my son has crippled me or tried to cripple me financially, cast me out of the family, but I'm going to go ask him for money.
Hey,
That'll
you know
work.
Sometimes every shot you don't take is a shot missed.
So yeah, well, OP's not missing any shots.
OP's not missing any shots. Neither's the dad. The dad's taking every shot.
Yeah.
He's missing a lot. But he's taking
every.
every shot.
OP's hitting all of the shots. The dad is missing
Yeah.
maybe every single one.
I'll admit that encounter didn't do me any good. It stings, to be honest, having your father prioritize a child that's not even his over his son and daughter. I've had sleepless nights over it, trying to think of a good reason, maybe something we did or something in his life that was so unsatisfying that he had to seek it elsewhere and not within his own family. I've come to accept that even though I always say I'm over it, deep down, I'm still hoping for a reunion, hoping that one day he will come to his senses and try to make amends. It's a long shot, but I hope for such a day. I'm not letting my guard down for 1 second. If anything happens, I'm more vindictive than ever.
I'm scared.
But I have hopes.
I'm frightened. I'm frightened for the day that something
God.
more happens because OP
Oh my God.
OP scares me. OP scares me.
OP is a little cray cray.
A little cray
A little cray cray. But
if you had OP on your side,
I mean, there's nothing that OP wouldn't do for you. Question for chat.
question.
I kind of have a policy of like, if someone is super vindictive, I kind of like am a little scared to be friends with them because, and that was actually one of the reasons that the last person I was like seeing, like, I'm like, oh, I don't know if like I want to keep seeing them, was because they were super vindictive, hella loyal, and like super hardworking, great
Seems
in a
like
lot of
this is
ways.
OP.
But like I feel like when you're too vindictive, I'm just worried that's going to be thrust upon me at some point, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's like when you talk to people and they're like, "Oh, I've dropped all of my friends," and like, or they are always talking about this person that they hate, and they're like trying to, it's just like it's a lot.
I feel like vindictiveness is one of like, I think it's like a not that great of a quality. Because you never know when that
will flip around to you.
Yeah, well, and it will flip around to you because no one's perfect. You probably make someone unhappy at some point, and if they're vindictive, like they're going, that power will be put to you. So yeah, I'm a little wary of it, but I'm curious what you guys think. Is vindictiveness a good quality or not?
Yeah.
Caitlin Van Campus says it's a character trait. It'll come back to you no matter how good of friends you are.
Riel says it's valid to be concerned over that trait. However, if you own up to your own mistakes, then you should be fine. Yes, but I do think with some people they aren't they hold grudges. So even if you do own up to your mistake, they're not going to forgive you. Like there's no like 3 strikes. It's just like one thing, and you're like, oof, gone. Pinky Dislayer says, most people who have wronged me, no, don't speak to me. I don't necessarily think I'm vindictive, but I am very petty. And Nicole Lynn says, if they are constantly vindictive towards me, then one person, run. But if they speak vindictively about just one person and only one person, they may be a nice person who's finally pushed too far.
That is true. That is true.
It's just seeing how they behave. Just watching that behavior, of course. My parents disowned me, but now they're asking for financial support?
I'm going to disown that ask and put you to the streets.
Yeah. Background. This is going to be a bit long. Throwaway because I use the same username for almost everything I have, sadly. So to start off, I'll say that I'm an Asian American with parents that are very old-fashioned Asian. By the way, this comes from Hey Throwaway. And if you want to submit your own stories, go to r/OK Storytime subreddit. So think of your stereotypical Asian parents. I was brought up to study and get good grades because I am the son of the family, and it will be my responsibility to take care of my parents.
Okay.
I have an older sister, currently 38 female, but since she was a girl, my parents were not strict on her at all and let her basically have whatever she wanted. When my parents came to America, they had no money or anything because they had experienced Khmer Rouge. They worked hard and brought up my sister and I in a typical lower middle middle-class fashion, except that they had those stereotypical Asian expectations of me. I always expected to take care of my parents since I was brought up to expect that. While growing up, my parents made me study a lot. They didn't let me do anything like learn how to bike, go to friends' houses, etc. I was expected to stay at home and study so that I could eventually get a great high-paying job and support my parents in their old age. The same was expected of my older cousins, and they have all become doctors or other professions in the medical field. It has been drilled into me to become a doctor since I was young. When I got into a good university, I majored in biochemistry and continued my education toward becoming a doctor. But I started to doubt whether or not I really wanted this path. I honestly did not know what I enjoyed in life, and while I could see myself being a doctor, I could not see myself happy in the future.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think like having parental expectations like that must be so hard. And then also to realize you're like, oh, I don't like this, and I've been spending like 10 years trying to become a doctor, and now like what do I do? And do I even know what I even like, because I've been spending so much time doing what other people want me to do that I don't even know what I want to do myself. Like that sucks.
This slight epiphany happened during my senior year, though, so I was already going to graduate. During my time in college, I took many language classes because I found that I was really good at learning languages.
Nice.
Before long, I found that I enjoy learning new words and getting fluent in languages. I found a career option that would let me teach English in another country for as long as I wanted. I decided that I wanted to do this instead of becoming a doctor because I found myself enjoying my time learning languages much more than learning medical stuff. I also just wanted to try this out to see if I liked to teach and if this was something that I might enjoy.
Okay.
When I told my parents, they absolutely freaked out, saying that I was throwing my future away and that I needed to forget about all of this.
Just really quick on this, the idea that there are 3 jobs, doctor, lawyer, engineer, that the only ways that you can be successful is being in one of those jobs is very much no longer true.
Yeah.
And if you have any kind
even
of
true back then either.
Yeah, but even more now, like at the age of the internet, when you have like you can learn anything online, and like you can make money from just going into your interests and sharing that interest with other people. Like I think it's like I don't know, it's just it's sad to see that being discouraged, because I think it's one of the things that leads to the most success is following your interest unabashedly and vehemently.
Very true. I responded saying that I was still graduating with a biochemistry degree in an honors program at a good university, and that if I didn't like teaching English, I could still apply for medical school and do other things while applying. They said it was ridiculous. Their reasoning was simple. Money will make you happy.
Not true, dude.
I severely disagreed and said that I still had not found what made me happy and that I wanted to try things out while doing it. I was not going to use their money because I had my own money that I had saved up, which would last a fair amount of time, and the job that I was considering paid a fair amount. In response, they said that they would disown me if I went off track and delayed becoming a doctor because they did not want to work anymore and wanted to retire. I said that they could retire whenever they want and that I could pay for medical school myself or take out student loans, which isn't unusual.
So what it sounds like is they don't want what's best for you. They just want a safety net because they want you to make a bunch of money.
Oh.
They want to be rich.
Yeah.
Because they want you to take care of them.
Yikes. They did not budge, and I would not budge. The end result was me being disowned by my parents during the end of my senior year at the age of 23. Wow. They said that I should not come back crying to them when I was poor and sad. My sister still kept in contact because she knew how unreasonable they were being. After taking the job in another country, I found that I loved teaching kids and that I also loved traveling. While abroad, I traveled all over the place when I had days off. I met a wonderful woman and married her. I have a 3-year-old son. Fast forward to the present, I am currently a university teacher for medical school.
So it seemed like it worked out after all, didn't it?
I guess I couldn't shake off my past of medicine, and I make a very good amount of money. I am living comfortably.
Let's freaking go, OP.
Lovely, because this combines OP's love of teaching and OP's parents' love of medical school.
Yeah, well, you kind of like hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
Except, I mean, maybe not on the parental side. The parental side, not as much.
But there is a problem.
Oh, what's the
As there
problem?
always
There's
is.
always a problem.
Tell us.
Recently, my sister has informed me that my parents wanted to meet. I was surprised because I haven't talked or seen them in 7 years. I went to meet them after thinking about it for a bit, and I will admit I felt huge relief seeing them again after so long. There was some small talk and catching up before they informed me that they were hoping to reconnect. I was, of course, open to the idea, but then they stated that they were hoping that I could pay them back like a good son for all they did for me. For disowning you at 23?
Yeah. Do you want that with interest too? Like,
It's called 23andMe, okay?
you kind of agreed to this when you signed up to have a kid by having a kid.
And it's like, oh, what's the alternative? You guys cut me off if I don't give you the money? Because you already did that.
You have no power.
For all they did for me through childhood until I finished college. They were hoping that I could still take care of them by making the last years of their life easier in a better house with people to help them out with things in their old age. I wasn't quite sure what to make of this request. I told them to let me think on it, and they were fine with that. After getting home and thinking on it a bit, they're basically asking me to buy them a house with caretakers to take care of them in their old age. It sounds ridiculous, but at the same time, I still do love, respect, and feel indebted to my parents for all that they did for me in the past, despite disowning me. Again, parents are supposed to do that. They're supposed to take care of you because they signed up for this. You did not. I am not sure why it's like this, but it may be because I was brought up with the expectation to take care of them. I can afford the request as well without hurting my family financially at all. I just don't know if I should. My wife said that while she would rather me not, it is my choice because she has never known my parents and that she will support me. I just don't know what I should do. And there is an update. I mean, this is up to you, but just know that they're always going to place money above you. They do not care about you.
They don't care about you. They care about the safety that you could provide them.
Yes.
And then maybe they care about some cultural expectations of what you should be.
Yeah, but they don't care about you. They've shown that to you because they didn't talk to you for 7 years. For 7 years because you wouldn't go to medical school. Or no, you went to medical school because you wouldn't become a doctor. Yeah, you don't owe them anything. But there is an update.
We're going to get back to the story, but Sam, you have a copious amount of something.
What, John?
X's.
I have like 4 or 5 or 6.
I heard of 6 with a 0
All
behind
right,
it.
that 60 number, comes from somewhere else.
Where does that come from?
It comes from our OK Storytime membership.
Yeah, that's freaking right. We have 60 plus hours of exclusive live streams on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
It's only $5 a month, so go to the link in our description, youtube.com/OKOP show/join.
Join a club almost as exclusive as Sam's X's. Well, let's get back to the story.
First off, I'd like to thank everyone that posted to my previous post. It was very helpful and allowed me to see things from many perspectives. I tried to answer as many as I could and read all of them. After posting and reading all the responses, I took a day to digest all the information and think clearly about what I wanted. I then called my wife up and we discussed for a while about what I want to do, what I will/won't regret doing, and our family. In the end, I decided that I would help my estranged parents. Many of you were against this, but from my perspective, they were still my parents. It may be because of my upbringing, but I still wanted to help them in their old age, and I'm not much of a vindictive person when it comes to wrongs done to me. Only when it's wrongs done to people I love. In order to move on with my life, I let most of my hate in the past, and I had, for the most part, forgotten about my parents until they contacted me again. Even though I decided to help them, I wasn't going to do what they asked for. I planned on asking them their reasons for getting back into contact with me, if they regret what they said, etc. I know that they are after some money from me, but personally I think it's fine to share a bit of money with my parents, who did raise me for 23 years. Once I finished talking to my wife, I called up my sister and asked if she would share some info with me about my parents' financial situation and such. It turns out that what my parents had saved during my childhood and time in college, they ended up gambling a fair amount away.
They gambled it? Oh.
It's a bit ironic as they are car dealers in a big name casino and see people gamble away their money basically every day. According to my sister, disowning me did have an effect on my parents and they retreated into gambling. They recently stopped gambling, but the damage was already done. My sister has helped them out some, but my parents never directly asked her for assistance. I instead asked my sister if she would be willing to help me in helping my parents. She agreed, and now the only thing left was to meet my parents.
Oh no.
I called up my dad and asked to meet him and my mom again. When we met, I asked them straight out why they wanted to meet with me again and reconcile with me. After a bit of my mom flailing around for response, my dad told me straight up that the main reason was money. Wow. They were getting old, made a stupid mistake, ended up in this situation, and were hoping for some help from me despite what they'd done.
I mean, like, if you do
Straight
help
up.
them, ensure that you don't give them any money to spend themselves because
Yeah, like make sure that
they're
you're
gonna
someone
lose it
else
all.
is in control. He said that they were sorry for what happened and that while it was one of the hardest things he had to do, he decided to come to me for money because he did not want my mom to live her last years horribly. He did not go to my sister because he felt it was more shameful to ask her for money than it was to come back to me as I was the son/a man. It did sting a bit to hear directly that he was only after money, but at the same time, I'm relieved that he didn't beat around the bush and lie to me. I asked him if he regret what he did to me and whether he was willing to apologize. He replied that he does regret disowning me and that it was in the heat of the moment, and his pride as my dad made it hard to go back on his decision despite it being stupid. He apologized, but said that he still did not think that his line of thought was wrong. He said that more than likely I would have ended up in debt and in a bad situation, but I worked hard to get where I am and that he is glad that everything worked out. At this point, things were getting a bit emotional, so I steered the conversation toward the money. I informed them that I would not be buying them a house, but would be willing to make their current house more comfortable, help with some bills, and maybe in the future, when they really lost their independence, I would hire a caretaker for them with the help of my
that's
sister
more
and
than
all
they
of this.
deserve.
They would
Like,
bring-
I feel like that
is more than enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that feels
for
like
people who like literally disowned you, that is much more than they deserve.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
I asked them why they wanted another house, and my dad said that while it wasn't too much of a problem yet, he was afraid that him or my mom would fall into eternal sleep from the stairs and wanted a one-story house instead. I suggested that they move from the master bedroom to the room downstairs that they were using as a computer room instead. I would help them move. They agreed that it was a good idea. My dad informed me that he still wanted to work and build up what he could after breaking out of the habit of gambling. I told him that I would be taking charge of his finances and regulating what they spent on what, and he agreed it was fine. Once the money talk was over and done with, we talked a bit more, and my mom again suggested that she was interested in my family, including my wife. I told them that I may allow them to meet my family in the future, but for now they were still basically strangers to my family and I again, and we had to work on the relationship before I allowed them to enter my current family, which very fair, very fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think they should be on pretty thin ice.
Yeah,
It's like,
you guys are on probation for sure.
Yeah, again, iPhone lock screen method.
Yes.
You know,
Like
help
you
them a
watch
little
it.
bit,
Watch
give them a timeout for a month. If they act the same, 2 months.
We left on amicable terms. Afterward, I called my sister and told her what transpired and that I expected to go half and half on helping the parents. She said it was fine to go 60-40 instead, with her paying the 60 because she felt a bit responsible that she wasn't there for my parents to try to break them out of their gambling because she was really busy. She was going to visit my parents on Thanksgiving anyway, so I decided that she should bring her husband, and the time after Thanksgiving would be when we moved the house around for my parents. I will be spending Thanksgiving with my family, but will go down to my parents' house afterward to help move things around. And by the way, you can help us by listening to more full episodes with stories just like this. Just go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app and
Go
search Appropriate
ahead
Storytime.
and listen to us for 47 straight days.
47 straight days,
47
nonstop.
24-hour days. You could do that.
And counting. It's growing.
It's growing every day.
So you might as well.
You
catch
might
up
as
now.
well get at it, okay? But there is a little bit left to this story. When everything was settled, I spoke to my wife again, and she agreed with what was decided and said that she was actually glad that it ended up how it did. The reason she was hesitant to say no firmly before was because she thought I might regret it because of my personality. She is glad that I'm not spending a huge amount of money on my parents. However, she is looking forward to the day that she finally meets my parents when I decide it is a good time. I hope that my son is able to develop a good relationship with my parents as he does with my wife's parents. All in all, it ended well.
Okay.
No revenge. No hate, just helping each other out.
I feel like OP is pretty
There's
well
one more.
adjusted
Yeah.
for having terrible parents.
One more
And
sentence. We'll see what the future holds for the relationship between my parents and I. Okay, now you talk.
I feel like OP is
Shut
pretty
up,
well
Sam.
adjusted for
Yeah.
having those terrible
Absolutely.
parents. You know, like it's
Because it doesn't, it's
a
not,
wonder they came out so good.
I would say like OP's not going on the one side of kind of being like, no, F you guys, I never want to see you again, but is also not going like, I'll do whatever you guys want.
Yeah.
Like has somehow like met in that middle of being like, okay, you know what, I'll help you out.
Which I
But
feel
there are
like
boundaries.
shows a massive sign of maturity.
Exactly. My daughter's entitled grandparents tried to steal her away. Luckily, the police stepped in. Arrest them.
Yeah. Thank you to the people who do all that service. Thank you.
That's kidnapping.
We don't want that.
Hello. So this story happened to me for over a year, and I think and hope it has finally stopped. Here is some backstory. After a painful breakup with a guy I was really into, I went back to my ex and after a month ended up pregnant. Because of my religious background, I decided to keep the baby and break up with my ex. By the way, this comes from Mifty, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to r/Shoki Storytime subreddit. So, he was 6 years older than me, 27 years, and was starting over his career, had no work, lived off his parents' money, and was a to pets. He spent all his remaining money on plants. It was his hobby while I was pregnant. He dismissed all of my symptoms, morning sickness, dizziness, weakness, mood swings as things I was making up. Seeing that I had no future with him and fearing he might even end up hurting our child like he did his dog, a sweet pit bull named Andromeda, who he hurt constantly when he wasn't in the mood, I broke up with him. Also, please call any sort of animal abuse line.
Yeah, what?
Please. That's
No,
not okay.
That's not okay. I already don't. This guy sucks.
He was shocked. He was sure that now that I was pregnant with his child, I wouldn't be able to escape him. He even tried proposing to me, but I said no, that I had no future with him and that he better leave me alone. During my first 3 months of pregnancy, my thoughts of being better off alone were confirmed. He mistreated me emotionally, saying all of my morning sickness, nausea, and other pregnancy symptoms were psychological because they were too early in the pregnancy. He forced me to go to parties, walk long distances, and visit his family, even though I was feeling really sick. After 3 months of torture, I broke up with him. The next month, he came over to my house, called, and tried to persuade my parents to tell me to get back with him. My parents told him to speak to me and that they wouldn't get involved in our relationship. My parents are really supportive of me. I was born in Russia but moved to Ecuador when I was small. I have fair skin, hair, and eyes, and in the country where I live, most people have darker features. Because of this, I was seen as a trophy due to my heritage and looks. When we were together, he showed me off to all of his family. Later, I found out it was his family tradition to marry people from outside the country to gain higher status. Meanwhile, my ex's parents, let's call them Bob and Karen, were being all nice and sweet to me. I never had any trouble with them and considered them really nice people until now. They texted me to ask how I was feeling and if I needed anything. By that time, I had already decided I didn't want any contact with the family. I wouldn't take money from him for childcare because I didn't want any visits, though I had planned on allowing Bob and Karen to visit and take care of the baby. My ex wasn't really worried about the baby. He was more focused on winning me back. When he realized that wasn't going to happen, he left the situation altogether. Fast forward to later in my pregnancy, I started dating my best friend. Let's call him Isaac. He helped me through the pregnancy and was there with me even during childbirth. Everything went well, and I had a precious baby girl. I fell in love with her immediately. Things were going smoothly when I got a text from Bob saying he was outside my house and wanted me to come out because he had some gifts for the baby. In Ecuador, it's customary to call at least a week in advance before visiting someone, and it's considered highly disrespectful to just show up unannounced. I was slightly irritated but came outside. Bob and Karen were there and handed me a bag of gifts from all of the family members they had told about the pregnancy. Then they asked if they could see the baby. I told them she was sleeping and that we didn't want to let anyone in so she wouldn't wake up. She was really small, only about 3 weeks old. Their sweet expressions twisted into pissed off, entitled grandparents. Karen struck her fist against their car, a small Chevrolet Theo, and Bob grumbled but then calmed down. He said that since they gave me presents, they now had the right to visit their grandchild. See, this is what Opie was worried about. That's why she didn't want to accept anything from anyone.
Yeah, where do you think the son got it from?
Yay.
This is their
Yeah.
They're paying the toll.
Mm-hmm.
We paid
They're
the
like,
toll
we
to see the
got
baby.
you gifts. Now you have to give us your baby.
We're going to get back to the story, but Sam, you have a copious amount of something.
What, John?
X's.
I have like 4 or 5 or 6.
I heard of 6 with a 0
All
behind
right,
it.
that 60 number, comes from somewhere else.
Where does that come from?
It comes from our OK Storytime membership.
Yeah, that's freaking right. We have 60 plus hours of exclusive live streams on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
It's only $5 a month, so go to the link link in our description, youtube.com/OKOP show/join.
Join a club almost as exclusive as Sam's ex is. Well, let's get back to the story.
I must allow them in, and Karen wanted to hold her. To me, respect is really important, and I can't stand being disrespected. I had just given birth 3 weeks ago, could barely walk, and now they wanted to come in and hold my baby? No way! In that moment, I changed my mind about allowing them in her life. Smart. Then the conversation went as follows. Excuse me, but I can't just let you in right now. She's sleeping and wakes up easily.
Oh, come on. It's just a baby. She'll fall asleep again after a few minutes. Just let us come in. Karen has come all this way to hold her.
Sorry, but it's a no. Thanks for the gifts, though. Next time, it would be nice if you called ahead so I can make sure everything is ready for your visit. You might get to hold her then. You have no right to keep the baby away from us, even if your relationship with X didn't work. She's our grandchild. I understand, but as I said before, I really don't want to wake her up. How dare you disrespect me? That's our baby, and we have the right to see her. Bring her out now. No, sorry, I can't.
That baby is worth a lot to us. You know that in our family, bloodline is very important. We need to take pictures of her and send them. Did she get blonde hair and green eyes like you?
She has amber hair and blue eyes.
That will do. Bring her out now.
I guess that's fine. Sorry, I'm tired. I usually sleep when she sleeps, so I'm going in now. Bob, do something about it. She's kidnapping our baby and keeping her away from us. These people are crazy.
That's not your
Crazy.
baby.
Girly. You already had a son, and he sucks.
Yeah.
I closed the door behind me, feeling shocked. They treated my baby as if she were a dog with a pedigree, just wanting pictures to show off to their family. I didn't like this one bit. I went inside while Bob tried to calm Karen, assuring her that I would let them see the baby next time. No, I wouldn't. Fast forward about a month, and I received a call that they were here. Great. Once again, they didn't call beforehand. Now I had a chance to talk to them properly. This time, I came outside with my dad. He's a really tall, well-built man with a stone-cold face, though he's actually very kind and funny. He just looks eternal sleep serious. Oh, I wanted him there in case they became aggressive. This time, even X decided to show up.
Hello, OP. Can we see the baby now? We got you more gifts.
Sorry, but you won't be seeing her. You see, I want to start fresh. I made many mistakes in the past, and I don't want to be involved with you or your family at all. I've moved on and want a future for myself and my daughter. Even if I get married one day, I don't want my daughter to have 3 sets of grandparents. I hope you understand. Karen's face turned red, as if I had just insulted her with the worst words possible. She leaned against the car, hiding her face as she began sobbing quietly. I almost felt bad for her, but all my sympathy disappeared quickly. Bob.
Oh, kids these days. Listen, we are her grandparents. We have the right to see her, take her, and do what we wish with her. She is our family, so don't act immature. Bring her out now so we can see her. Also, on holidays, she will be coming to our place and spending them with us. You are just a child and don't know anything about life.
X.
Yeah, she's mad at me and is doing this out of spite. Our family is very prestigious, so the child will be very happy. Also, everyone will love her because she has foreign blood, and we want to make sure everyone knows how special she is.
My decision is final. Sorry, but I will not keep in contact with you, nor will you meet my daughter. How dare you, you little immature girl? You have no right to take this away from us. We're her grandparents. My dad, who was already fed up with all of this, raised his voice, something he never does. It was terrifying. His Spanish isn't great, but he made himself clear. Okay, you listen to me now. My daughter has suffered enough with people like you. She wants to start a new life.
You're not Nosferatu. I'm not
and that will be best for her daughter too. She doesn't need people like you in her life. So you just leave her alone. OP, let's go inside now. Karen then suddenly pushed past me, screeching like a mad banshee as she tried to shove her way through my house gate and into my yard. This shocked me, Bob, and even X, but not my dad. He just stood there, blocking her path until she got tired and walked back to her car, defeated.
We are family, and we have rights. Remember that, you immature girl. You are hurting your daughter.
Let me tell you some stuff about parental rights in Ecuador. The mother has sole custody until the father proves he is the father with a DNA test. He has 5 years to prove it, or he loses his right to parenthood. Only the father has the right to move something in court. It costs about $1,500 to call me for court, $1,500 to bring the DNA test result, $1,000 to state that he is the father, and $1,500 to set up the visitation rights and such. Being an unemployed teen with no career and no time, living in a city 6 hours away from me, he didn't have all that money, nor did his parents. Also, he only cared about winning me back to show me off. He didn't care about his daughter and couldn't be happier. His parents couldn't bring anything to court since they're not the immediate relatives, so I am more than sure they won't be able to do anything. After all that, they texted me a few times trying to come over and visit my daughter once again, but all their offers were denied. After they came without announcement once again, and nobody came out, that was the end of it. Or so I thought!
So we thought.
I live pretty far away, in the next city, which is a 2-hour drive. Close to my house, there's a shopping mall I often go to. I was on a stroll there with my Isaac, who, apart from being pretty handsome, practices martial arts and is buff as heck. His friends nicknamed him the demigod because of it, so he's quite intimidating. Dang, girl!
That's a crazy nickname.
Oh my god.
The demigod.
When he gets pissed, all heck breaks loose. Also, he's really protective of me and my daughter. Every Saturday or Sunday, we go out just to walk around, buy a snack, and just have a chill time dating with my daughter in her stroller, mostly sleeping. X knew I used to do this and must have told his parents because while we were waiting in line for our ice cream at Baskin-Robbins, I had the stroller next to me, not in front of me as usual, because it would take unnecessary space in the line.
Oh no. Oh no.
So I have the stroller on my right and Isaac is on the left. I have my hand on the stroller and we're just chatting along, waiting our turn when I feel a slight movement in the stroller and turn to see if my daughter, let's call her Abby, woke up. To my surprise and shock, I see Karen trying to sneak Abby out of her stroller, obviously waking her up and making her make muffled cries.
Illegal.
What the F are you doing? I say, trying to take Abby from Karen's arms, but there's a stroller between us. Karen turns around and starts to speedily walk off with crying Abby in her arms. You should know that in Ecuador, you might get robbed, harassed, or attacked, and almost no one cares or will do anything about it. So all the people in line just stared. That sucks. I walked past the stroller to chase after her, but Isaac was faster and managed to catch up to Karen, who was pretty fat and slow. He snatched Abby carefully from her arms while she was having a fit, handed Abby to me, and proceeded to scream at Karen. I noticed that Bob was in the car, peeping at her, but not wanting to come out.
He's like, ooh, you got caught. I'm not part of this.
They wanted to make a run for it and steal my daughter away. Isaac.
How dare you touch Abby? And worse, even steal her away from the stroller, you dumb bee.
Karen then sat on the ground and started screaming for security. They came and asked what was going on. Security guy 1. Ma'am, what seems to be the problem? They kidnapped my daughter. That baby's mine, and they took her away from me and then shoved me to the floor and punted me in the guts. Security guy 2.
Hey, is that true? No, of course not. She stole my girlfriend's baby from her stroller and tried to make her run for it. She's the mother of OP's ex. I just stopped that fat bee and returned the baby to my girlfriend.
He's lying. He stole her from me. I'm the mother and she looks like me. Don't you see? Security guy 1. Well, let's check the security footage to see if there's no need for that. We're wasting time. Just give me my daughter back now. She needs me. Wasting time for what? For you to make your getaway?
It's now, yeah.
So security made us all go and check the footage, which proved that Karen was following us for about an hour before trying to snatch Abby, while Bob was waiting in the car for her the whole time. Then the footage showed everything else that happened. The security guy said he would have to call the police, so while he dialed the cops, she once again tried to snatch the now sleeping Abby from my arms, but without luck, because Isaac was right there and blocked her way before pushing her down to the ground. By But we would never block you guys from listening to more full episodes with stories just like this. Just go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app and search up OK Storytime.
Very easy.
So easy. And there is a little bit left to this story. So let's get into it. Karen just stood up and started screeching while trying to get past again, throwing the old 12s and punts. The security guard had to restrain her until the police came and took her away. So that was the last I heard from them, and I hope it stays that way. You see, some of you may think it's wrong for me to keep my daughter from her father, but knowing that, first, he has no interest in her, second, he's an abuser, and third, he might only use her as an object to show her off to his friends and family, makes me believe I'm making the right choice in protecting her from all the pain that might be brought to her in the future. And comments. Comment 1 says they'd probably show her off to their friends and be like, yeah, we stole this baby from its mother because the father was our son's, so that makes her ours. Yeah, the logic isn't there. The logic is not there.
It's so sound. It makes sense.
Comment 2 says restraining order. Get one placed on your ex's entire family ASAP. There is still a very big chance of them tracking you down, so getting one soon will help in the long run. Also glad that you and your daughter and BF are all right after all this insanity. Reply says that thing doesn't work unless you get a friend or the friend of a friend to do it faster. Believe me, my mother waited for 2 years to separate from my father. Sometimes Ecuador's system is like a soap opera, and that makes me angry. That's why sometimes I wish I had never come back. And commenter 3 says the fact that some human beings believe that they are entitled to another human being's child simply because they share blood with the child is bad enough, but attempting to kidnap a baby, it sickens me. It is one thing to attempt to steal a possession, as I have read many people try to do, like a drawing or a video game. But a baby? A living, breathing, miniature human being? You did the right thing in casting the family aside. Isaac sounds like a great father for little Abby, far better than her biological father. I am a firm believer that blood means little compared to the bonds we forge with our decisions as we go through trials in life. And while Isaac might not be related to her by blood, he could still be dad all the same. Her biological father, put quite bluntly, is a loser. Any of his offenses put singly would have been more than enough to warrant booting him to the curb, but adding them together, well, he's a loser and his family are as well. And that is the end of that story.
My parents abandoned me. Now they demand my inheritance.
I demand you go back in time and don't abandon me.
So I was born when my mother and father were only 17. It forced both my parents to drop out of high school and each get a GED so they could find work right away. My father especially was not happy about this because he had dreams of playing football in college, and instead he had to work at a gas station. He said to my face many times that I ruined his dream. By the way, this comes from I'm Just a Neighbor on the r/OK Storytime subreddit. So my mother hardly raised me at all, and she had to work too. They had a cranky old lady next door watch me most of the time. She wasn't so bad. She gave me more attention than my parents did. My father eventually managed to land a better job as a manager due to his experience running the gas station. It was right after that my mom got pregnant with my sister. Are they ready for that? I don't know.
I mean, you know, maybe they've had a little bit of practice, right?
It was right after my mom got pregnant with my sister. I was 6 when she was born. I wasn't exactly shown much love before that, but once my sister came along, it was made pretty obvious to even my 6-year-old self that I was unwanted. The only ones who seemed to care were my paternal grandparents and somewhat my babysitter. And they were more like my parents because they treated me the way a little kid needed to be treated and loved. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. And as my sister got older, it went from me sharing a bedroom with her to me kicked out of the room entirely. I slept on the couch for 2 years, and I barely had anything to my name other than clothes, school supplies, and an old Game Boy. When I was 10, my parents decided they were going to move away. But this move did not include me. I ended up actually being fine with this, and my grandparents had agreed to take me in. And my life was instantly better. I got my own room again, and my grandparents gifted me a brand new N64 in 1996. That Christmas, I got a Game Boy, a pocket Game Boy too. And there were a couple of kids my age in the neighborhood I got to hang out with. We rode bikes, played video games, shot cans with pellet shooters, built forts, and got dirty playing in the creek. You know, stuff a normal kid would enjoy, you know, creeks. I was finally happy. As time went on, I grew up and eventually moved out, but later moved back in to help my grandparents as they were getting old and living off their retirement savings. So some rent money from me went a long way in paying bills. My grandpa was the kind of person who wanted to build a bomb shelter during the Cold War, but never got around to it. He wanted to volunteer for the military in the 60s, but was turned down due to a medical condition and the fact that his eyesight was not great. So he focused on saving whatever he thought he needed. He told me many a time it was better to have something and not need it than to need it and not have it. Or our area suffered from numerous power outages in winter due to heavy winds and storms, so having gasoline and propane for heaters and generators was a must. All these saving habits became my own as time went on, so y'all are all preparing for the big one. Because it was better to need this stuff rarely than not have it at all. Of course, there was the HOA bothering us, but that's its own other story. The problem is about 5 years back, my grandma passed away suddenly, and my grandpa was heartbroken. He also went about a year and a half later. Pretty much everything they owned was willed to me. So OP's not only rolling in a creek, but rolling in cold, hard cash. I mean, dude, if you have money for a survival bunker, you got cash.
This guy has 500 pounds of gold buried around the country. And then there's a secret will in the blacklight ink that it's like a trail that leads to a map under the bedroom floorboards that leads you to the gold.
Pretty much everything they owned was willed to me. Their savings, their house, their vehicles, their stuff, everything. The house was long paid off and Grandpa knew how to keep up with his maintenance. In fact, after Grandpa passed away, kind of doubled down on renovating the place. He had the roof redone. The house was repainted by us inside and freaking out. And we fixed a lot of little things. Grandpa's neighbor, Gorge, even came by to help redo the plumbing. But ironically, the HOA was rather happy with these changes because the house didn't look run down anymore. One morning, I was fixing breakfast and my grandpa never came downstairs. You couldn't keep that man from his bacon. Probably maybe one of the reasons he didn't come downstairs.
How old was he?
I don't know, but I know bacon ain't too good for your heart. So I went to check on him and he wasn't moving. I called 911 and the paramedics came, only to tell me he'd passed in his sleep.
We're going to get back to the story, but Sam, you have a copious amount of something.
What, John?
X's.
I have like 4 or 5 or 6.
I heard of 6 with a 0
All
behind
right,
it.
that 60 number, you know, comes from somewhere else.
Where does that come from?
It comes from our OK Storytime membership.
Yeah, that's freaking right. We have 60 plus hours of exclusive live streams on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
It's only $5 a month, so go to the link in our description, youtube.com/OKOP show/join.
Join a club almost as exclusive as Sam's X is. Well, let's get back to the story.
My parents made Grandpa's funeral a crap show. They didn't bother to show up for Grandma's. They were too busy. And at Grandpa's funeral, they didn't seem to grieve at all. My sister also showed up wearing a brightly colored designer dress, which I wasn't happy about as it was a church clothes only function. And I noticed my parents repeatedly whispering to each other and glaring at me whenever I looked at them. Come to find out at the will reading that my parents knew that they had been disinherited long ago for their treatment of me. So OP's now finding out that they had been disinherited like ages ago. And they thought it was extremely unfair that I got everything. They threatened to sue me to contest the will. Fat chance, chump. I want them to be far below the creek so they never have access to the joy of a creek. I want them, every creek that they have in recent memory and long forgotten memory, to be removed. I want it to be Men in Black little camera thing that removes the memory.
I want to throw him in my creek and ride him like a boogie board. You know, just like for fun.
They threatened to sue me, and I got repeated calls and messages from my father, mother, and sister telling me I needed to do the right thing and give my father what was supposed to be his. I told them all to flake off in far more unsavory words. My parents ended up taking me to court to challenge the will, but the judge ruled in my favor after seeing the will and hearing us both out. So it wasn't a long, drawn-out legal battle. The judge even looked at my parents with absolute disgust after seeing the will and hearing about their mistreatment of me in my childhood. He called my father a terrible parent and that my grandparents were right to disown him. My father just hung his head in silence, but he made sure to stop me outside the courtroom and tell me I was always the biggest mistake of his life.
Hey, well, guess what? You still don't get anything from the will, stupid. I would hope at this point that OP is just like doesn't. It's like, you're not even my dad. My dad was my grandpa. Like, you are just some trash that he happened to raise.
And that if he could go back in time, he'd make sure it never existed. He should have been a football star. Get out of here. Dude, imagine being that much stuck in high school. Like, man is living in the past. Also, first of all, if you were really that good in high school, maybe you would have gone to like, I don't know, D3, D2 college.
I mean, that's why this guy's so pathetic.
He thinks he was so much better.
He's taken what could have possibly been one of the best things to ever happen in his life, and for just the fantasy so that he can hold on to the toxic fantasy that eating away at him like a corrosive acid.
He's absolutely delusional.
And instead, you could have had a beautiful son. You're just a pathetic loser.
He should have been a football star. Instead, he has to wear a name tag for a 9 to 5. I told him that, mistake or not, Grandpa and Grandma could see what kind of nasty person he was. I didn't ask to be born, and the only real love I ever got was from my grandparents. And he was no father of mine anymore, snaps OP. I got a few more threatening and harassing phone calls, as well as some letters from my parents, all demanding money, among other things. Yeah, freaking right. Get out of here. But over time, they stopped because I completely stonewalled them. Never responded to the emails or the letters, and I stayed silent during the phone calls. A few times, I just left the phone sitting on the counter with them ranting till they realized I wasn't listening.
I just had a great idea on how to make him upset. You make a compilation, you send it to your dad, right? And your dad. And it says his name, college football highlights, and then it just cuts to thanks for watching, because there's nothing there. It's just a black screen.
Yeah. Aside from not getting the house or money, my parents seemed particularly irked. They could not even get a rise out of me. But I was prepared to go to war against them, and they knew it. So in the end, they just left me alone. From what I know about looking at Facebook the past decade, my sister tried to get into modeling, got married, had 2 kids, got divorced, and is currently unhappily working a job she feels is beneath her. My mother currently works retail and is also vocal about her disdain of it. Like my father, she peaked in high school. She was a cheerleader back then and even had an old uniform framed on the wall. My father has pretty much had the same job for 25 years. He must have been good if he's still doing it. By the way, if you're a good little girl and boy, you should be listening to OK Storytime, the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Just search OK Storytime and it'll pop right up.
That's right. You'll have 47 days worth of OK Storytime to listen to.
Yeah, 24 hours, 47 days. As for me, well, I'm in my late 30s now, and I live pretty much debt-free in a nice neighborhood. I haven't really had a girlfriend since high school, and I've had little motivation to ever have another relationship, but loneliness gets to everyone. So maybe I'll try finding someone soon. Not many are in the financial position I'm in at my age. Single, paid-off house, 2 vehicles, and a decent amount in the bank. I guess I could aim to be a stepfather. That might be more at my speed. And that is where that ends. Let's freaking go, OP. Don't give him any of that money.
If I was the judge hearing that, I'd be like, actually, you're just going to go to jail now.
The judge spanked him. Like, you don't deserve to be parents. Pop, 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 pop.
My parents mistreated me, so I cut them off. Now they want to rekindle.
Rekindle, restart, refresh, or just don't do it.
Yeah, that's agreed. Sorry if this is long. I have a non-identical twin sister. The 2 of us couldn't be any more different. She's lucky enough to be very beautiful and tall and very good looking. She has always ticked every box on her looks. By the way, this comes from user Zoe13ASD on the r/OK Storytime subreddit. So, I wasn't so lucky. I wasn't on the beautiful side and was shorter. Right now I'm 5'1" and she's 5'8". She was also better at making friends and being sociable, while I was always her awkward sister. Now I know I'm on the autism spectrum, but was only diagnosed 2 years ago. My parents never bothered with that. Now, none of these make my parents horrible. What makes them horrible is the way they treated me and my sister. They always treated her like she's an angel and treated me like I'm a loser. This goes back as early as when we were 3 to 4 years old. For each 20 pictures that they have of her childhood, they have maybe 2 or 3 of mine. Literally, they have over 10 times as many pictures of her, and most of mine are of both of us. She would always get a lot of attention from everyone, and I got none. Parents spent much more money on her, too. Let's say if they wanted to spend $100 on clothes, $80 goes to her and $20 to me. Their reasoning has always been that she's more beautiful and it's worth spending more on her as she gets a lot more attention while nobody looks at me anyways, so why bother with better clothes? They have literally told me that many times. Okay, so I'm going to throw your parents into the sun. I was in a sports team, and they never once came to see me playing while they go see my sister cheerleading every week. Extend this to everything, and you know the story of my life. I hated every second of my childhood. I hated my sister. Yes, I know none of this was actually her fault. I worked on myself with a therapist, so I no longer feel any hate or blame towards her, which we love. That's amazing. This is the parents' fault. Since I was 15, I was counting the days until I became 18, and I could leave and never come back. And that's exactly what I did. That 18 is the age which you can leave home without parent consent. I left home the day after my 18th birthday. The night before, our parents threw a birthday party for us. Well, I mean, for her. Their gift for her was a $1,000 gift card from a luxury designer brand, and for me, a $100 gift card for a bookstore, arguing that this $100 gives me the same level of ability to buy the things I like, which are books, as the $1,000 would to her. Expensive clothes. Okay, their logic. Right. They knew I was thinking of leaving, but they had no idea I wanted out ASAP. I left that day. That's got to be the dumbest parent logic I've ever heard. We gave your sister $1,000 for designer clothes, but we gave you $100 because books are not so expensive. Just give them both $550. If you're already going to drop $1,100 between the two of them, give each of them $550. It's that easy. $550 is enough to shop at designer. For God's sakes. They asked me to stay and allow them to help out, but I was like, quote, I've had enough of you. Leave me alone. I never made any contact with them after that. As soon as I was able to, I moved to another city to get even further away as I hated the city too. They called and texted me for a while, but I never answered or replied and changed my number eventually. I had also removed them from all my social media. I set it so that if they sent me any emails, it would automatically get deleted and a reply, automatically deleted. Do not waste your time to be sent. That's the current status of things on my side. Well, I mean, it seems like OP has been pretty systematically worn down here.
I'm worn down right now.
Yeah, that was a brave thing to do. It was a brave decision to make. I hope that it's, for the best. Let's keep going here. 2 days ago, my dad sent me a message on Facebook. My initial instinct was to delete it, but I opened it and started reading. This was the first message in months from them. He explained that he understands that they were not good parents and that they did a lot of wrong, but maybe we can start over. He asked if I can come over for dinner at some point so all of us can get to know the new versions of each other better. I have not responded. I don't know if I should give them another chance or just delete this message and don't look back. Ooh, and here is an update. What would you do, Keon?
I gotta talk to somebody. There needs to be a parental figure here that needs to, I don't know, stand up for her. An adult figure. I need an adult. That's what I need.
Like you need another adult who's not one of her parents?
Yeah. I'm not a parental figure. Not
a
one of her
mediator
parents.
almost?
Like, you know how we read it earlier? Like the aunt was like... Yeah, something like that where like someone stands up for you and no one's doing that.
Yeah, someone needs to shout out and be like, this is dumb and you're not treating your children correctly.
Guess what? They're not going to take you seriously. They haven't.
Well, it's been a long time. I think I would see, right? I think you keep everything, but I think at the very least you can be like, all right, let's take a chance to see if anyone has changed here. And if the answer is no, you go right back to what you were doing before. And you can cut your loss. Like, you have nothing to lose.
That's the thing. You have nothing to lose, but everything to gain.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I just feel bad because in that position of you're so young, but you're also like, your brain is morphed now into this, like, where do I go? What do I do? I have no support system. I wish OP had a support system, but it seems like there's none of that.
Well, let's go ahead and get into the update. Find out what happens. So thank you for your comments and suggestions. They were super helpful and helped me see things a lot more clearly. Love you all. This is a big update and something quite shocking. I've gone back to my therapist, but before I get into it, a lot of you asked about my relationship with my sister, Well, there is no relationship, really. I spent all of my childhood hating her and never really had a nice relationship with her. She was not like my parents, but they had spoiled her, and she sort of always saw herself as the better one of the two of us. Not surprised there, and right now I don't even blame her for that. On the day that I was leaving, I gave her a hug and told her that maybe if we had different parents, we could have really been sisters, but it's not how it turned out in this life. Maybe we can make up for it later ourselves. I told her that if she wants to talk to me about this, she can. She can call me and we can meet up. She never did call me. As it appeared from the last post, I went to talk to my therapist about this, and she suggested that I can initiate some conversation and see how it goes. Based on her assessment, she was happy if I wanted to go and see them. I just need to understand that there's no obligation to go or to stay, which is good. So I replied to my father's message with this. Hi, Dad. For us to ever have a chance of seriously starting over, you owe me an answer. Why? I expect an honest answer. No, why what? No, come and let's talk in person or anything of that sort. Just give it to me straight. Believe me, I can handle reading it if you can handle doing it. If you're not willing to give me that, then I'm not willing to start over. He came back to me the next day with a long message explaining why. And here it is. He told me that he and my mom wanted a child, and only one child, as they didn't have the resources and energy of having more than one. They realized that we're twins, and that screwed up everything and actually made them sad rather than happy. I'm automatically super suspicious right now. This has got to be one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, where it's like, first of all, you clearly weren't struggling enough to give your, daughter $1,000 on her birthday when she turned 18. You know how many times I got $1,000 for my birthday? Zero. Zero. What? That's an absurd amount of money to get at 18 on your birthday. It just seems like BS to me already. Anyway, let's continue. Oh my God, they decided to give one of us up for adoption.
Whoa, what? Whoa.
Okay. They looked around and even found a couple. In case you wondered, I was the one they decided to give away. Yeah, shocker.
Shocking.
Because I was smaller and my eyes weren't blue. Yeah,
what?
That's how you decide which one of your kids to keep.
What is
Dude, your
this
parents sound
story?
Horrible.
What is this story? This is I'm bewildered right now. This is crazy. I've never read a story where it's this crazy. This is crazy.
My eyes weren't blue. I know another group that liked blue eyes. They arranged everything, even took me to them, but that couple bailed out before signing the papers when they saw me and my sister. Yeah, their conscience couldn't handle separating twin sisters like this, which also, oh my God, yes, there's literally all these crazy studies and experiments that have been run, and when you separate twins at birth, it messes them up.
You heard that documentary with
it's called Three Identical Strangers,
which is insane to me.
So yeah, definitely don't do this. Your parents are low-key being evil right now. The way that they're handling this.
This is
awful.
I'm
No longer do they deserve the son. They deserve the number 14.
Is anyone stopping the parents? Who's stopping the parents?
Well,
do
who
they have
could?
family members?
They're in a bubble, probably.
I'm so confused. Who are their parents? Who are their grandparents? Are there any siblings? Who is? Everyone's letting this scot-free. Where is this okay? This is not okay.
Nah, this is not.
What the heck, man?
So after this, they looked for some couples, and nobody seemed willing to adopt one of the twin sisters. They entertained the idea of putting me into foster care, but they couldn't live with themselves if they did. I think that says a lot. Stranger couples who so badly wanted to adopt a child couldn't be heartless enough to separate twin sisters, but their effing parents wanted to do it. It is beyond me. So they had to raise me themselves, and they didn't enjoy it at all. In their minds...
That's so rough.
Oh, hey, Sam.
Sam just comes in and laughs at the most horrific, It's that's rough. In their minds, the fact that they didn't put me into foster care was a favor in and of itself, more than what I apparently deserved, and that's why they never cared to do more for me. Their full time and resources belonged to my sister, and the small part of it that got to me, they saw it as me taking what was my sister's away. That's how they saw me. No wonder my childhood turned out the way it did. Given all this information, do not reconnect with them. Now that you know why, you go, oh, goodbye forever.
I mean, that's even more of a reason to just get away.
Yeah.
Their actions were terrible, but the reason for their actions are even worse.
And it's if they didn't have a change of heart the entire time raising you for 18 years, they're not going to do it randomly now that you're an adult.
Agreed.
So no wonder my childhood turned out the way that it did. He said that deep inside, they always knew what they were doing was wrong, but they could never step up and do the right thing during these 18 years. Why not? Well, they thought that changing the dynamic would negatively affect my sister, as she's now used to being offered more time and resources, and I'm used to not getting it. So making it more equal would be a luxury for me and a pain for her. Can you imagine? That's like the parents from Harry Potter being like, well, Harry, we wanted to take you out from under the staircase, but we were worried what it would do to Dudley. So we decided to keep you under the stairs for 18 years.
I mean, that's
Do you know
exactly
what we
what they
sacrificed?
did.
It's like, no, you guys are not the good guys in that context. What?
I mean, you have to take love from one of your children and give it to the other, right? You can't possibly love them both.
These people are psycho, dude. I
Garbage.
can't believe it. They thought that that's not fair for my sister to be in pain for the sake of my luxury. So ever since I left, Mom and Dad were having trouble. My sister's off to college, and they're alone now with all the time in the world to think about what they did. They've been to marriage counseling, and according to him, that has helped them see everything clearly now and see how cruel they were to me. He says they want to start over and make up for all of it if I'm prepared to allow them. And by the way, I am prepared, more than prepared, to allow you to listen to full episodes with stories like this.
Yeah.
All you have to do is go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast from and search OK Storytime. And there you will find a near endless, a plethora of episodes.
You can listen to 24/7, 365 for probably 2 years, and you would not run out of content.
At the clip that we posted,
Yeah.
it'd be a tough order.
You would be
to
hard
catch up.
pressed to catch up. People say they do it. I have no
I
idea
think
how.
they do it on like 2.5 speed. So they
Even
hear us talking like,
so.
I was
2.5 speed, but are you watching all the live streams too?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you could only listen.
So what's this little update we got?
Let's get into it. So this is quite shocking for me. This explains a lot about why my childhood turned out the way that it did. I'm going to be honest, I wished they had given me away for adoption. I really, really do. I could have been with adoptive parents who really wanted me rather than with biological parents who never did. I still don't believe that they've changed, though. This can be the result of my sister, their golden child, being away and not spending as much time with them and them trying to replace her with me. I think you just hit the nail on the head there, OP. I don't want to do that at all, but I don't know. I've got to talk to my therapist. Please give me your opinions again. You guys were so useful to me last time. Your help means a lot. And that is the end of that story. And I think I can confidently tell you that you are correct with your instincts, that they are trying to just like fill the void that is now there because your sister left.
My parents want to take me to court for increasing the rent.
Get that money, dude.
You gotta get that cash. I bought a small starter home during the housing market crash, completely by myself. I lived there for the better part of a decade before buying a larger home with my now husband. My parents really wanted to live there because it was small and easy to maintain. They have foreclosed in the past, so no way would they be capable of someone giving them a mortgage. By the way, this comes from Novel Patient on the OK Storytime subreddit.
And you can use that against them.
Yeah, in court.
And in rent. Like, oh, since your credit's bad, you're going to have to pay more.
Also, my dad is retired and my mom doesn't work. They wanted to rent from me. For a discounted rent, they paid off the mortgage, let's say $50K, with an over 6-figure inheritance my parents got. A lease was written explaining that it was a prepayment of rent and their rent would be only the taxes and insurance and they would pay $350 a month. That's very cheap.
I've noticed that when people pay less, they fight for more.
They're like, we want to pay even less.
Yeah.
Basically, only going up when taxes/insurance goes up. We signed the lease with all the other typical stuff in it and had it notarized, and that's how it's been for a while now.
Okay.
So to be clear, I'm not making an effing dime on this house. I recently told them the rent would go up by $3.
Stop.
Because of a slight increase in the insurance. My mother lost her crap, claiming I'm a money-hungry bee. She was going to rip out everything she did, garden and other cosmetic changes that I owe her, and I can't evict her because it's her house. She's not responsible for the insurance. Lease says otherwise. Insurance has been raised in a decade looking at effing lumber prices. I'm trying to make her pay my personal homeowner's insurance. A court will show me that and give her my house.
Oh,
this
my
lady's
gosh.
delusional.
What the heck? $3?
$3?
Just don't go.
Just literally don't grab a coffee.
Yeah.
Just don't buy coffee one day
per month.
and you're fine. Per
you know
month.
What? You know what? Just go 1 month without coffee.
And then you've
for the
got
year.
like way more money.
Yeah.
We have a notarized lease. They are listed as tenants.
Yeah. The notarized lease.
Yeah.
That
They have a
everyone
lease that
signs.
tells them that they had to pay the $3 increase. I am the only one on the deed. My father demanded the bills, 0 balls this man has, to see if I'm ripping them off. P.S. This house is a commutable distance from effing Manhattan, so a studio apartment around here is like $1,500. This is a house with a large yard for the dog. I can easily get $2,000 for this house even before they moved in. I sent them copies of the taxes and insurance showing only their address. P.S. I'm charging them discounted taxes. You get a discount for paying in full 90 days earlier.
Oh, wow.
So he's giving them so many like discounts on this place.
Yes.
And they still want that $3.
Yes, this is the cheapest for their house.
New York house you can get.
Oh my gosh. I would gladly.
Please, I'll take it.
You know what? I'll do $500 a month, man.
Yeah, you can raise it $500. I'll do $503.
Hey, wait a minute. 504.
I told them to add and divide by 12 and told my mother to talk to a lawyer so they can slap them straight. I guess my father agreed with me because now she's divorcing my father.
Okay. I think it's just a mom, dude.
Yeah, I think it is. I think the dad was like, yeah. She was like, give me that $3. And he was like, yeah. Give her that $3. And she was like, we're taking them to court. And he was like, well, maybe we should. And she was like, divorced. And that was the whole.
Anyone that slightly disagrees with her or slightly doesn't go, out.
Update. First, I want to thank everyone. I was mainly just venting because I was very upset after the exchange and have been dealing with some health issues, which my parents know about. So it's just a range of emotions right now. I keep getting a lot of the same questions. They've lived there for 4 years now. My mom has always been entitled and an alcoholic.
Oh no.
Weekends and summers were spent with family. My aunt admitted when I was an adult it was to keep us from being around the alcohol. Oh wow. I mainly did this for my father so he can get a chance to retire after having heart surgery when he worked a physically demanding job for 36 years. Well, you can still do it for your father.
Yeah.
You can just kick your mom out and she can go off and find her own whatever. I don't know how much
live in a bar now.
$297 house. And she can be happy with that.
Yeah. And it's shaped like a beer bottle.
Yeah. Oh my God. They asked to rent the house and pay it off as a prepayment of mortgage. So the only big bill monthly was their health insurance. I had a few others interested in renting my house. I did not ask them for this. They did not co-sign on the mortgage or help with the down payment. Their name is not on my house/deed. There have been rent increases in the past due to the taxes and insurance going up. And there was never an issue before. My husband's dad unfortunately passed away without getting to enjoy his retirement. A big reason why my husband told my dad he needs to retire and enjoy life a little.
Dang.
They're so nice to these parents. OP and her husband are really trying to help them out, and this mom is just the worst. She just freaking sucks.
$3, dude.
And his inheritance helped pay the down payment on our new house. My mom has a history of putting crap on me, and $3 is, I guess, my line in the sand. I started paying $200 a week after I graduated high school until I moved out at 20.
For them.
Yeah, for them. And they can't pay you what you need. I worked about 65 hours a week on top of school to do this. And yes, shockingly, they foreclosed when I moved out. Oh, so OP was keeping them afloat in this house. That's what it seems like.
That's $800 a month.
Yeah, OP was $200 a week. Yeah, $800 a month.
He probably was paying the house payment.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I stupidly put her on my phone plan and basically paid her phone for 2 years until the contract ended because she only paid me for 3 months out of those 2 years. She promised money for my wedding and never delivered. They didn't pay for college. They stopped paying for clothes/school expenses when I was 16. Wow.
Dang.
Because I had a job. I know this is all a red flag parade, but I trusted my dad more than her, I guess, and thought I was doing a good thing. I also want to keep this house because I love it and want to move back one day. It's just too small for us as a young family, or allow my child to live there when they go to college and want to have fun without parents hanging around or racking up dorm costs.
Yeah.
Also, she threatens divorce all the time.
Oh, so this is probably the dog barking, no
yeah,
bite.
It's just like he anytime he brings up something that's not in line with what she thinks, she's like, divorce. He's like, you say this every time. I can't keep up with it. How many times have we gotten divorced? I doubt she'll actually go through with it. And there is an update.
Wow. Yeah. I don't think she's going to divorce.
I don't think so. If she's like this stingy about $3, she probably needs all the help she can get.
Yeah. Because she's using
Divorce is expensive.
She's probably just using all that money for alcohol.
That's sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is probably maybe true.
I think she's going to chill out
Mm-hmm.
and stay. Because she's going to realize, oh, I'm going to actually have to pay probably $2,000 a month to live somewhere else.
And also, trying to take someone to court is expensive.
Yeah.
I don't think she has money. Nothing in the story has proved that she has money. But let's get into this update. To back up, after the divorce comment, they are not, in fact, getting a divorce.
Called it.
They went and celebrated their anniversary at a casino. Okay.
Classic.
Probably not the best place to go if you
Hey,
are
they're
addicted
trying to get
things.
enough money to pay off the $3
Yeah,
more
they're like, we
dollars a
need that
month.
$3. I did not speak to them for a week. This past weekend, I tried to speak to my father and get an apology, hoping he would be in a better frame of mind. He wasn't. He doubled down with the BS, saying they didn't realize all the stuff I put in the lease.
What?
That's on you. You didn't read the lease?
And the lease protected you,
This is ridiculous.
only making you pay the minimum
How are
amount.
You can't get mad at what's in the lease if you didn't read the lease.
Yeah, okay.
That's like a full you.
And you can't be mad and stingy.
Yes.
You can't be dumb and stingy at the same time.
That my house was uninhabitable when they moved in. It wasn't. That they never would have put work into the house if they were just renters, etc. I asked them to specify, and they said stuff about the garage screen door, the shed roof. My husband replaced 2/3 of it with my dad's help. Dad did the other 1/3, and by God, the hose. The hose leaked.
Dude, that's a big thing.
It's
whenever the hose-
uninhabitable.
Yeah, whenever that thing's spraying around
You
everywhere.
can't live there
My second cousin moved out of his third house
because of the
it.
hose.
Because of the leaked hose.
That in no way affects the livability of the house. But in the words of my lawyer, and you agreed to live there in its original condition, buddy, so that's on you. Just like not reading the lease.
Boom.
My dad went on to just say all these things they were doing for me and not acknowledging a dang thing I was doing for them. At that point, I said some not nice things, including the alcohol-induced dementia everyone mentioned. They wanted to know if they were still going to be able to take my son to the fair. Not a fat chance in hell. I told them I didn't want either one of them around me or my family until they stopped being delusional and to decide to pay the increase or get the F out. I then cried when I got off the phone, and my husband was upset with all of this. Cut to today. My mother called me asking what needed to be done to resolve this because not being able to see my son was upsetting them.
Pay $3.
We know what you need to resolve. $3.
That's it.
It costs, if you want to see your grandson, you got to pay the $3 fee.
Easy.
Told them they needed to apologize for what they called me and that they were out of line. Well, you guys, they were scammed. My parents were effing scammed. That's what this was all about. In my area, homeowners get daily calls / texts and letters from people wanting to buy their house. I get those all the freaking time.
Yep. And
They're so annoying.
don't answer.
I just block them and I get them literally every week. It's not new in this market. I have even told them these letters are trash. Well, my parents were getting calls from people saying they were going to be renting the house. They acted like they were representing me. Someone also showed up to their house, and was being very pushy about trying to see my mom in the house. This all happened before I mentioned the rent increase. So when my mom heard rent increase, she thought these phone calls and this person was real. Like I was going to raise the rent to something they couldn't afford and force them out. This was before I told them it was $3. But even after, they thought I was throwing them out. I asked them why they didn't ask me, and they said they were scared and had no place to go. This is so frustrating.
And I feel like the mom has a ton of pride.
Yeah, she's like, I can't ask my daughter for
Yeah.
help. I explained to them that's not even how it works. I can't rent a place with tenants. There's a whole legal process, and they should know this. They apologized for how they acted, everything they said, and were embarrassed. They were even more embarrassed that they believed this person and are officially old people that fell for a scammer because they thought they were smarter than that.
That's what hurts the most.
They're like, dang.
We're old
We
now.
fell into the trap. They hadn't given them money or information yet. That's good.
Yet.
So you didn't fully get scammed.
They said yet.
They were like, we were going to do that tomorrow, but we're reconsidering. I told them they were probably setting them up for it. Scammers will pretend to be renting a house and take people's last security. And when the new tenants show up, the house is already occupied and they're screwed out of the money or pretend they need money to let them keep living in the house. I have no idea why they believe / fell for this person or why they never asked me in the first place, since I don't and wouldn't hire a representative for my one house.
Yeah.
Their cameras were off when they came, but they're going to file a police report anyway. I told them to call the cops next time time to file for harassment/trespassing if these people call or show up again. I got my apology from both my parents. What a
All
plot twist.
right.
What a plot twist.
This is good.
But the real question,
Did you
get
it?
your $3?
I don't think so.
We haven't found out yet. There's a little bit left. I explained everything in the lease and why it was legally written that way. I explained to them I can't throw them out on the street on a whim, and as long as they pay the minimum bills to live there, taxes and insurance, I was going to keep my end of the deal. So I guess that's my update. They're not getting evicted now, but I might have to start monitoring them more closely to see if they fall for other dumb crap. And by the way, you should watch us more closely at 3 p.m. PST on YouTube. Just tap our profile.
When we go live.
And there is a little bit left to this story, but do you have any final thoughts,
I'm
Riley?
still not seeing the $3 increase.
I'm literally not satisfied until they pay the $3, until it's written explicitly in the story. I'm upset, but there's a little bit left to this story. PSA, a lot of us seem to have boomer parents, so I wanted to make you all aware of something. My parents have Medicaid, which in the great old US of A means that if they have a large medical expense, they ain't paying for crap until all their personal assets are utilized. This means draining bank accounts, taking property, and even requesting back gifts from up to 5 years ago. So for example, your mom falls and breaks a hip and winds up in rehab. Your mom gave you $20K for a new roof a few years ago. The government will demand that money before they pay for the rehab. They can take their savings and demand property in their name sold to pay for it. They legally cannot touch their car, but that's it. I know this from personal experience with a grandparent, and all of you should too, to help protect your parents.
Nice.
And that is the end of that story. OP didn't get their $3.
Dang.
OP, the whole point of this story was OP was like, I'm raising the rent $3, and we still don't know if we ever got that money.
My girlfriend's parents are extremely controlling, so I helped her escape.
The Great Escape.
So, quick edit at the top here. The GF stands for gender fluid. The pronouns change daily, so I stick with gender neutral ones when speaking about them generally. I, 22 female, met my partner, 23, gender fluid, on Facebook dating when I was 20 and they were 21. I had never been in a relationship and was on dating apps for years at this point. We clicked shockingly quickly and were messaging each other constantly. By the way, this comes from user Lesbo Queen on the r/OK Storytime subreddit. So, we had so many similarities neither of us thought we'd see in another person. We saw each other's character extremely quickly, and it was like looking in a mirror. So we became a couple after 2 dates. There was no question about it. I saw some odd behavior from their parents very quickly with how restrictive they were about our initial meeting. I wasn't allowed to pick up my partner. The dad had to come with us, and he even took a picture of us at the restaurant to quote unquote prove to the mom that he stayed with us the entire time, though he just drove around the plaza to give us some privacy. I dismissed it as them wanting to make sure I wasn't a catfish or something, so I didn't think it would continue past our first date. I met the mom on the second date. I went to church with them since my partner was forced to go. We're both atheists, and that's where I saw all the red flags. I joined them on an outing and wasn't even allowed to drive myself there. We barely got the chance to be out of earshot of the family. The mom only told me hello and it was nice to meet you the entire time, and when my partner tried every opportunity to include her, she has a history of being upset when not being included. She would just complain to them like it was a personal attack. I was infuriated having personal experiences with those types of comments from my own mother, who I temporarily cut off at 18. So I mentioned what I saw in our phone call that night to make sure my partner knew they tried their best and it wasn't their fault their mother reacted that way. We officially became a couple a few hours later. We made a relationship update the next morning, and naturally the mom was making comments to my partner about how we're moving too fast. My partner tried everything to tell her about me, but she would either get upset or find something to not approve of, despite it being in line with her morals. We could only see each other on the dad's schedule, so of course it conflicted a lot with mine. I got increasingly frustrated that I couldn't see my partner on our time like we weren't both adults. The fact that I had been so respectful of their stupid rules and never complained, only to get no respect in return, made me start playing it my way.
Again, you are young. 20, 21,
Yeah.
Parents are going to be like still treating you as a kid, especially if you're living under their roof.
Yeah, if you live in the house, it's going to be really hard to not be treated like you're a kid living in the house.
Yeah.
If you're not paying rent, if you're not paying bills, the unfortunate reality of Western society. And I think maybe most other societies is that this is our house, not yours.
Our house, our rules. And you're like, I've been very respectful, and like, I don't care.
Move out.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Which sucks. That sucks.
It does suck.
That's the scenario.
It does. I worked only a few minutes away from their house and got off around midnight, so I got the idea of asking my partner to sneak out so we could go to some late night restaurants. My partner hadn't done that before, nor I, but we successfully did this 5 nights in a row. We had our first kiss the first night that we did this in the middle of their street. It honestly felt like a movie. On the 3rd night, my partner complained that the dad wouldn't buy more allergy medication and didn't want to use up the moms, so at work the next day I decided to deliver said medication and some goodies from Walgreens. I asked my partner first, of course, but they assumed that I was getting it delivered to my place for our meetup that night. I thought if the parents were going to get upset, it would be because I had their address. The mom exploded over this, then gave my partner the silent treatment. Toxic. The dad came in to explain to my partner what was wrong, saying it was weird to get someone medication outside of marriage.
What?
What?
These are just allergy meds.
Remember, kids, no allergy meds before marriage.
What?
No spicy sleep, and especially no Allegra before marriage.
No free sponsors.
I don't even know if they're real.
As someone who has a lot of allergies, that was like the most generous thing you can do is get me allergy pills because they are pretty pricey. So what?
Oh, well, as you just said, they say it was too expensive. Maybe that's why it was weird.
What?
And now it makes it seem like my partner was leeching off of me. I was obviously baffled and infuriated. My partner was being punished over something I did. It was $25 over-the-counter medicine and an absolute gift. My partner never asked me for it. It was my idea. And who were they to criticize the way I spend my money? On night 5, the mom put a parental lock on my partner's internet, probably to hinder contact with me, as if phone data doesn't exist. My partner had enough and took me up on my offer of staying with me. So they took a bag and their cat and ran away that night at 21. That's not running away. That's just leaving.
You are an adult now.
Yeah, you just left a place.
I think both OP and their partner are very sheltered, and they've never again tasted freedom or like done things on their own. And this is like, I can do things. I'm an adult.
Yeah, it sounds like intense religious conservatism, especially with like, oh, spending $25 for your partner outside of marriage is unacceptable and weird. Like, what?
What? It was for their benefit and their health, and
crazy. My partner left a note making it clear that this was their decision and not mine. The dad called the next afternoon, obviously upset and begging my partner to come home. He then showed up at my work, but he obviously was only there to beg for his kid back, not to have a proper conversation about why my partner left. So I wasn't interested. Our intention was to shock them into perspective that they needed to respect my partner as an adult and weren't entitled to a relationship with their kid if they treat them like crap. This is exactly what I did with my mother, and our relationship has never been stronger. Our terms were that we could all discuss what happened and why together, but my partner would not do it without me because I would make sure things were properly communicated without risk of them intimidating and manipulating my partner. They refused, citing it as a family issue, as if I wasn't involved and they weren't actively villainizing me. So their other option was going to therapy. Yeah, it's crazy for them to be like, no, person who our child is living with, you're not at all involved in this.
These are very overprotective parents that just want their way and want to control their kid.
Hey, what are we doing over here? Well, come on. Okay. The dad, in his stupidity, assumed that I wouldn't listen in on their phone calls. He actually agreed to speak to my dad, who I live with, and then tried to use my father's conversation to manipulate my partner by twisting his words to make it sound like my father agreed with him, that he's right to make my partner come back. He also tried to use the fact my partner couldn't drive and didn't have a job or quote-unquote life skills against them, but who was supposed to teach them? I easily saw through his tactics, but my partner was not able to defend themselves against it. If the dad just talked to me, I could answer his concerns. Not only did I rent my first apartment at 17, but I had done the research and been prepared to help a friend become independent with even more hurdles than my partner. I was literally the best person to handle this entire situation, as if all of my life experiences prepared me for this relationship. He kept saying things like blah, 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 and it wasn't logical, trying to make my partner feel unreasonable. They literally thought my dad and I were human traffickers and outed my partner to their grandparents, so they disowned my partner.
Well, that's one way to get. Yeah, that's one way to get out of, that locking parental guidance.
Yeah. Oh, you won't come home? All right. Let me try to get your friend and their dad arrested for a felony, and also I'm going to make your grandparents hate you.
Wow, you guys are like the best parental figures out there. Congrats.
Yeah. Really making a strong case for why they need to go back home. The mom demanded $200 for my partner's phone that wasn't my or my father's money, and would only hand over Social Security card and the birth certificate needed to get a job if my partner gave her their cat, which was in my partner's name and bought with their own money, until she got the money she wanted, because you clearly love that cat more than me. The dad eventually convinced her to hand over the documents. My partner agreed to go to the nameless taco establishment alone with him to get the documents and talk a bit. That's when he presented an ultimatum he wrote with the mom. It said that my partner had to move back home or with the grandparents, this was before the outing, in I think 10 days, with the benefits of them helping my partner learn to drive and get a job, freedom to see me whenever, and getting therapy. This is a classic bait and switch. This is not going to happen.
No.
Yeah.
You can learn how to drive from, OP's dad.
Yeah, don't need any of them for that. And if they refuse this ultimatum, they would be cut off from the family, from the phone plan, and from health insurance. My partner just said whatever to make the conversation end. I read the crap and said bet, and then ordered a new phone line. I was literally yelling, call their bluff. What, we're just supposed to trust them to keep their word even if my partner agreed to it? The mom then blasts this family matter on Facebook, saying my father and I had my partner in a stranglehold, continuing this narrative that my partner wasn't capable of making their own thoughts and decisions. My partner fought with her in the comments and even said, if you think it's forever, you're fooling yourself and you're burning all your bridges as you go. As if this woman who said 2 things to me knew the longevity of our relationship. They finally arranged for the mom and my partner to see a counselor. It didn't go well the second session, so my partner refused to go back. But in these sessions, the mom said she knew I was a bad person during the medication debacle because my partner shrugged at one of her questions, which was giving her an attitude, which was clearly picked up from an outside source, obviously.
I don't like that.
How do you possibly spin, oh, my child's partner brought them allergy medication without even being asked? That's thoughtful.
You forgot to say, because the dad didn't get the partner the allergy medication in the first place.
Literally covering your own mistakes. And then you're like, this person is nasty. I can tell. The way you shrugged, she's giving you attitude.
She's changed since she's taken these allergy pills.
Yeah, which by the way...
Since they've taken these allergy pills.
Definitely sounds like the mom doesn't have a shred of attitude, right? I'm sure her attitude needs 0 adjustments. I hate people like this. They just kept on going. They said they listed the house for sale so they could move out of state because the situation was just too much. They were literally forcing my partner to choose between them and me. I never wanted that. I suspected it was a lie, but my stepmother confirmed the house was never listed for sale, which is even more rich because my partner told her they wanted a new therapist because the second therapy session made them think of self-harm, and she completely ignored that and then said she needed to talk later so she wasn't too distressed before the realtor comes. Wow. And by the way, I just want to let you know, you can listen to full episodes with stories like these. All you got to do is go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from and search OK Storytime. And there you will find a plethora of episodes to peruse in.
So many.
So before you finish this story, I mean, like, clearly there should be no issue with going no contact with the mom.
That's obvious.
And the fact that the dad is also not really having a backbone here and seeing the error in their handling of the situation.
They just want to go back to their original ways, have control of OP's partner, and that's that. It's just very clear, like they're trying to do anything to manipulate OP's partner to just get them back, and just ruin their life.
Yeah, and I mean, look, in a different context, maybe this is a positive. In a different context, and I don't think this is the case, but if they were dating someone who was like the devil, it's like, okay, yeah, maybe do force the issue, try to get them to come back home. But clearly, the person bringing them allergy meds when their own parents forgot to get them is not the devil.
No, and again, you should be doing, if I were a parent, you would be like, okay, my child is getting taste of freedom. Kind of want to like navigate it in the right direction. This is completely the wrong direction in navigating them of how to handle adulthood.
Yeah. So the dad kept insisting that my partner reach back out to her and then reassure her that my partner loves her and this isn't her fault, but it is. So my partner finally blocked them both. Then the dad took their brother's phone and pretended to be him, so my partner also had to block their brother. Collateral damage here now because the parents are so, I got no other word but stupid.
Yeah.
All because the parents couldn't understand that they weren't entitled to a relationship with their child. There were more shenanigans from the dad through email and physical mail, but he finally agreed to have a discussion with both of us a year later. He finally gave up after I wrote him a 6-page email laying out everything he needs to take responsibility for and everything he would need to do to mend the relationship. And my partner had their own version cussing him out. It felt like an argumentative essay about why he's an a-hole, including sources. The silence we received was bliss. Oh, by the way, we're 2 years in now and engaged.
Congratulations.
Yes, although I would low-key be wary of the trauma bond. The ring was in an allergy meds bottle.
That's
Oh my
adorable.
God. That's
Full
amazing.
circle.
That is full circle. That's
Have
amazing.
whatever allergy company or allergy bottle you got, have them sponsor the wedding.
True.
Have them pay for the wedding.
Allergy medication sponsor wedding.
Yes.
Wow. Well, that's a great ending.
My sister-in-law is rude, and it's hard to keep the peace.
Don't keep the peace.
Yeah,
Fire!
just don't even try. My 31 female boyfriend, 30 male, and I have been together for 3 years. We've gotten to know each other's families quite well as we live nearby and can visit often. I love my boyfriend's family, except his brother's, 33 male, long-term girlfriend, 33 female. I called her sister-in-law for the simplicity in the title. Let's call my boyfriend James, his brother will be Mike, and his brother's girlfriend, Kelly. By the way, this comes from Throw RA Raccoon Weaver on the OK Storytime subreddit. Kelly and Mike have been dating for 5.5 years. I truly believe she is well-intentioned, but oh my God, she is freaking terrible to be around. I get along with almost everyone I meet, but being around her actively makes me feel like I'm losing brain cells. We are polar opposites, but that's not why she's terrible. She makes wildly inappropriate comments to everyone around her, has no self-awareness, and thinks the world owes her something. Kelly and Mike are not in a good financial position. Kelly is unable to work because of her traumatic childhood, and Mike works 50+ hours a week in construction. He busts his butt to provide for them, and she spends her days at the local bar with the local riffraff, then complains about not being able to afford to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home on several acres of land in our high cost of living state. For Christmas, my boyfriend's parents are hosting celebrations, and we are doing a small gift exchange with a max budget of $10 per person, and then everyone drew a name from a hat, and we get that person one gift of up to $50. So everyone gets one big gift and a couple of small things. At first, we had no budget, but Mike was concerned about being able to participate, so we set a budget, and James slipped Mike $200 so that he wouldn't have to worry about it. It's not Secret Santa, so everyone knows who drew which name. James drew Kelly's name, and immediately she started sending him links to things that were $100 plus for him to get her. He reminded her of the budget that we set to benefit them, and she said, "You can afford it. These are the only things I want." And made it worse by saying, "Mike drew your name, and we're getting you something nicer than $50. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt that she may not know that James gave Mike the $200 to help them out. She hounded James about it being unfair that they suffer while we have so much, so clearly he can afford to get her a nicer gift. Both James and I are very comfortable, but we've both worked hard for everything that we have. She insulted him, called him greedy, told him that he's selfish and only cares about himself and the fancy life that he lives with me, and that Mike and her resent him for abandoning them. James is the kind of person who would give his last dollar away, the shoes off his feet in a snowstorm, and who acts tough but is actually just a big softie. A lot of people take advantage of that, and he caved. He got her the fancy over budget gift. No, but don't do that, James.
Boy,
Please.
boy, no.
James and Mike's parents just kind of roll their eyes at her when she makes weird, inappropriate comments, and their mom has confided in me that she's happy at least James picked a normal one, and that she's glad that she doesn't have to take care of both her sons into adulthood. They are completely unaware of what's happening behind the scenes between Kelly and James. I'm not afraid of confrontation, but don't want to ruin Christmas by losing my crap at her. She's bound to say something or do something because she always does, and I really don't know if I can bite my tongue much longer. I am furious at her. I feel like I'm going to explode if she makes one offhanded comment or snide remark that I'm betting it'll only take 20 minutes for her to say something stupid. It's not about the gift. We don't care about the money. To me, this is icing on the cake of her already poor behavior. To James, it's just another thing that he wants to let slide because he loves his brother, and it makes Mike's life easier if Kelly is happy and not complaining. How can I navigate this and stop her from taking advantage of James in the future? Talking to her rationally is futile, and James did try that, and that's how we're here. There is an edit, but what do we think of those questions so far?
I think you just have a conversation with James and you're like, hey,
Yeah, gotta be
like,
serious.
you gotta put some boundaries up because this is not okay behavior and you're allowed to say no.
Yeah.
And if she keeps pushing past them, maybe it's like we don't participate in these gift exchanges anymore or something.
Yeah.
Or like in the gift giving with her at least.
Right. I don't know. It's nice that you're being very sensitive about like giving the money to James or to Mike, to like help him out a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't think you need to be like, well, I give him money, you know what I mean? So that you can pay for my gift. So it's not like you're, using your own money. Because I feel like, I don't know. I feel like that would be a little holding it over their head a little bit. So I wouldn't say that.
Especially I don't think you can give a gift and then,
then be like, well, yeah. Thank you for all the comments. I'm going to push pause on this account until after the holidays and we'll post an update if anything interesting happens. I've decided to go into this armed with a couple of the quick and simple responses that people have suggested in here. My favorites are, wow, what an inappropriate comment. Or, I can't believe you just said that out loud. James and I will chat too after the holidays. I agree that he needs to set better boundaries, but we can have that conversation privately after the chaos of Christmas. Happy holidays, all. And there are some relevant comments and an update. Comment from Jen5872. Whenever she said something stupid, reply with a simple, what an odd thing to say, and walk away. You can omit the odd part when it doesn't fit the statement. OP responds, as an example of the things she says, my boyfriend has a cousin who had a car accident and one of their legs has a severe burn scar on it.
Oh my God.
That covers like half of their leg. Cousin was wearing shorts when they first met Kelly. First words out of Kelly's mouth were, whoa, what the F happened to your leg?
We should explore our options of shutting up.
That's a great idea. It's awful. I do like your suggestion. My facial expressions usually speak for me, but with how she spoke to James, I'm livid. Okay, Gazelle 5400 says, imagine how hard, what a weird thing to say to a person would have hit. Opie says, it's true. Locked and loaded with this one for Christmas, for sure. Al's Pals says, did you mean to say that out loud? Captain Amy Santiago says, that sounded like more of an inside thought. These are great suggestions.
Yeah.
I love it. OP says that is my favorite so far. And now for the update. Thank you to everyone who commented. This is a rather anticlimactic update. Christmas was actually lovely. Kelly behaved for the most part, though of course made a few left field comments. Using a mother-in-law and father-in-law for simplicity, but my boyfriend and I are not married. Here are some examples. Mother-in-law opened a gift. It was a turkey baster. Kelly exclaims, whoa, father-in-law trying to get her pregnant again? What an odd thing to say.
What an odd thing to say.
That
OP
is-
better do that. I want OP to do it.
There was an awkward pause. She turns to me and James and goes, actually, I'm surprised it's not you. And on recommendations from Reddit, I laughingly responded, what an uncomfortable thing to say.
Ooh,
Good.
Ooh,
Good.
bop.
Surprised it's not
Bow. I love
you.
that.
Kelly went on about how she expected after we took a 2-week vacation that we would be sharing a pregnancy announcement. I responded, well, that's kind of weird. And by the way, what's never, ever weird ever in the whole wide world is if you listen to more stories like this, just check out Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app and just search up, okay, story time.
Do it.
But there is a little bit more. But
Let's jump into this because
let's
I want to
just-
hear OP.
Me too.
Because that was great. That was great.
Yeah. I got James a gag gift that says some sexual innuendo on the butt of a pair of pants.
Ooh.
Kelly kept making comments about no one needs to know the details of your spicy sleep life.
Girlie, you just asked.
Yeah,
Like 2 seconds ago.
I don't know what you want. Despite that the pants were a joke, this was repeated all night, but I just ignored it. Otherwise, we had a great time and a great family gathering. I wish I had something more exciting, but the answers I got helped me have a few responses in my arsenal to respond to her weird comments, and otherwise I ignored her. Thanks, Reddit. And there are a few more comments. Pied Goose says, no one needs to know the details of your spicy sleep life, but I'm going to loudly speculate about how much of it you had during a trip away. That's so inappropriate to suggest that, like, just because you went on vacation for 2 weeks, now you're going to be pregnant
Yeah.
because of all the crazy things like going on.
Yeah, just keep your mouth shut.
Just please. All the colors 8762 says, it sounds like you have a better outlook on the situation. That's good, at least. Those why did you say that and please explain your sexist etc comment phrases work on people who have no social awareness. Honor the Crone says, I disagree. People who make those comments are doing so because they think that they are funny and inoffensive. Repeatedly asking them to explain it lets them know that you don't see the humor and pushes the annoyance to them. I have seen this work. It won't make them act not, but they quit making those comments around. And I don't think there were any racist like comments noted here, but I guess it does apply.
I think it was just saying like that comment applies to any of those type of,
Which I think that last comment has a good point, you know? Like, not that those comments aren't inappropriate, but like the reason that they're making it is just because they think they're funny, and having the response of being like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, and making them be like, oh, this person doesn't want to hear that, or like, oh...
It just makes it very awkward.
Calls them out a little bit.
Yeah.
It calls them out in like a as non-confrontational a way as possible.
It lets them like take a moment to confront themselves and be like, oh, what did I mean?
Yeah.
But that is the end of the story. So yeah, I think that was handled very well. Congratulations, OP. What an odd person.
What an odd egg.
That's the end, so we'll see you in the next one. Boop, boop.
I'm questioning my fiance's parental custody, so I want to cancel our engagement.
Yeah, what do you want custody
I need more
for?
information. I, 40 male, have been seeing Joe, 36 female, for about 8 months, and we recently became engaged. Wow. She has a 14-year-old daughter, Kelsey, with her ex-husband. Kelsey lives with her father in another city and only comes to see Joe when she gets a vacation from school. So I've only seen her a few times, most recently over spring break. By the way, this comes from deleted on the OK Storytime subreddit. So I've gotten the impression that Kelsey doesn't especially enjoy these visits with her mom. She usually is on the phone with her friends or watching videos on TikTok and always seems like she wants to go home. She sounds annoyed whenever Joe tries to talk to her, even if Joe is simply asking Kelsey what she'd like for dinner. Initially, I dismissed it as simply her going through typical teenage stuff, and that she might feel differently when she gets older. When Joe and I began dating, she told me that she really missed her daughter, and that her ex-husband was an unfit father due to him being a workaholic who hardly spent any time with his wife or his daughter.
Dang.
And that it wasn't fair that he got legal custody and she didn't. When we got engaged, she asked me if I would help her get custody after we got married. I said yes.
What is she cooking up here?
I'm wondering if she was actually the unfit parent.
Oh, okay.
But also, it doesn't seem like he's noticed anything super out of the ordinary. So we told Kelsey the news of our engagement the most recent time Kelsey visited, after which she became even more cold towards Joe, flat out ignoring her when she tried to talk to her. Joe asked me if I could talk to Kelsey by myself. I told her I didn't think it would be a good idea, but she insisted, so I did. At first, Kelsey ignored me and told me to go away. I asked her if she could at least tell me why she didn't want to talk to her mother, and she said it was because her mother was an whore.
Whoa.
I wonder if the ex is saying this stuff. I didn't want to upset her further, so I came back out and told Joe what she said. Joe told me that she wasn't surprised that Kelsey said that and thanked me for trying to talk to her. Once again, I chalked it up to Kelsey just being a typical teenager. However, the other night I went out with a friend of mine whom I haven't seen for a while. We were catching up, and I told him that Joe and I were engaged and I was going to help her get custody of Kelsey. Now, my friend knew that I was seeing Joe, but I had never previously mentioned to him before that she had previously been married and had a daughter and was trying to get custody. My friend seemed shocked by this, and he told me that most of the time when parents get divorced, the mom is the one who gets primary custody
and is in charge of all the major decisions regarding parenting. And the fact that she doesn't have custody is a major red flag, as it means she's not a good mother. Now, I don't know a whole lot about custody arrangements aside from what Joe had told me, as nobody in my immediate family has been divorced. However, I was dismissive of this too, as my friend can be very opinionated. He has even less knowledge about this than I do, and he's never been in a serious relationship, which is something he's rather insecure about. I love that OP's like, yeah, he like warned me, but he's never been in a serious relationship.
Yeah, it's like really not valid.
Yeah, and I know he's insecure about that, but I'm going to bring it up. So aside from being mildly annoyed when he said this, I didn't think too much of it, and he's always been like this. Joe had told me when we first started dating that she had made some bad choices in the past, but had learned from her mistakes and was working hard to be a better person for the sake of her daughter, and her ex was just a big blank. A-hole, maybe?
A bigot.
However, the more I've been thinking about it, I'm starting to think that there's more to this whole thing than Kelsey simply dealing with teenage stuff. And perhaps something happened that has made Kelsey really resent her mother. I have never met Kelsey's father, and my opinion of him is entirely based on everything that Joe has complained about. I assume that Joe's ex was a deadbeat dad who was spending all of his free time getting wasted with his friends, but it actually sounds like he's a hard worker, and maybe Joe wasn't happy about this because he wasn't spending quite as much time with his wife and daughter as she would have liked, but at the same time was committed to providing his family with a roof over their head and money for all the necessities, and from what it sounds like, even some luxuries such as the occasional trip to Disneyland. It sounds like when he wasn't tired from work, he actually is a good father.
I think we have a untrustworthy narrator.
Well, it seems like OP's just been misinformed.
Yeah, I think they're skewing it.
Yeah, well, I think the OP's current fiance is telling him
Joe.
Joe is telling him some lies or some half truths, and he's like, oh yeah, I mean, like, we'll get you custody.
It's like we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. But you said untrustworthy narrator, which would mean that OP is untrustworthy.
No, that's what I meant. Like, not the narrator, but Joe.
Yeah.
Joe. Yeah.
I agree. I could be overthinking this, but I don't want to be contributing to Kelsey's issue with her mother, especially if there's anything going on that Joe hasn't told me about. And because of this, I'm considering breaking up with her. Whoa. I would have a conversation with her before you break it off, especially because she's your fiance.
Fiance called me crazy.
I'm going to call you crazy.
If I hear someone talking really bad about their ex,
yeah,
just like all the time,
yeah,
I would probably not be very interested in that person.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, my ex did this, blah, blah, blah. It turns out like they were an okay person.
Mm-hmm. It is a red flag, but I think it's definitely something that you would have to like have a conversation with before committing to breaking, just because they're about to, like, they're fiancés.
Well, I think they're just thinking about breaking up. They're not actually. He's not going to.
He says considering. Yeah. I don't want to commit to anything without knowing what I'm getting myself into before I do so. I love Joe, but if she's actually an unfit mother, I don't want to be in a position where I'm having to make excuses for her, especially if she's in denial about it and refuses to get help for whatever issue she might be having. I don't want to be part of the problems. However, if I were to break up with her and it turns out that I'm actually am worrying about nothing, she might be too hurt to forgive me. I already ended one relationship back when I was in my early 20s because I incorrectly believed that my girlfriend at the time was cheating on me. And after we had broken up, I discovered that she was actually telling the truth when she said she wasn't cheating. She understandably was too hurt to want to give our relationship another try. I don't want to make the same mistake with Joe, but the situation is very different as she is a kid whom I promised I'd help her get custody of, and I don't want to break my promise unless I absolutely have to. I want to do the right thing, but I don't know what the right thing is. Would I be the a-hole if I ended things now before I potentially became part of the problem rather than the solution? And the solution to all our problems is you joining us live every weekday at 3 p.m. PST on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. Just tap a profile.
Tap, tap, tap.
And there is a little bit more. There's another update. But pausing, based off of his previous relationship, like breaking up with not the full story, it seems like he's doing that again. Not saying that Joe is innocent or even that she's, a fit mother or whatever,
but he's
totally
coming to a conclusion without all of the context.
Yeah, he's he literally came to this conclusion after having a conversation with his friend where he was like, oh, well, the court's not giving her custody means that she must be an unfit mother. We have no evidence of that.
I am seeing an overthinking spiral.
Yes. It seems like he's just jumping to conclusions and is like, well, I have to break up with her before even talking to her, talking to Kelsey, talking to the ex. There's so many different paths that he could go through before jumping to break up. He seemingly has seen, besides Kelsey, like not liking her mom, there's been no other proof that like it doesn't seem like he's seen any bad behavior from Joe. So I think he's jumping a little too quick.
I agree. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Let us know.
Update. Kelsey came over for the Memorial Day weekend. She brought a friend with her. Joe initially was opposed to this, but Kelsey refused to come over unless her friend came with her. So Joe relented. Her dad dropped them off. I tried to talk to her, but she didn't want to hear it. She once again called her mom a you-know-what. I didn't press for any further details. We actually had an okay weekend with a barbecue. When her dad came to pick him up, I told him that I wanted to know if there was anything that Joe wasn't telling me regarding Kelsey. He initially was reluctant, but we exchanged contact info and we're going to talk about it at some point later in the week.
Oh.
So there definitely does seem to be some stuff that Joe isn't telling me, but I don't know if it's anything bad or if it's anything worth calling off the engagement over. And there is no more.
There has to be.
There's got to be an update. This is frustrating. Kaya says, I feel like when people jump to breaking up before getting the full story are just looking for a reason to leave the relationship.
Oh, you deleted it.
No! And there's nothing else?
No.
That's so upsetting. I need information. And also to Kaya's point, I feel like normally yes, but it does seem like this is just his kind of like avoidant attachment style. Like he notices one thing and he jumps to conclusions and then he gets out of the relationship. Especially because like this is the second time he's doing it where he's not talking to the partner before jumping out. Definitely needs to have a conversation, regardless of what the ex says. He needs to have a conversation with Joe because the ex has his own story that is totally biased because he's an ex. Persegrebus says, so he was wrong. Why delete it otherwise? That is a good point. He might have been totally wrong. And he's like, oops, my fiance was super chill. And we're actually fine. Never mind, guys.
Reddit comments are saying do a background check. This one says, you're a wild guy engaged after 8 months. Stepkid won't talk to you. You still somewhat think it's okay for you to jump in and get custody of the stepkid while they won't talk to you and you know less than jack crap about the situation.
Yeah, it seems like he's like really in the dark about everything. And he's not asking any questions.
Maybe, yeah, he just doesn't like
Until
full
now.
context.
Yeah.
Ugh. My father-in-law dismissed my boundaries, and no one seems to care except me.
Oh, boo-hoo.
I've been dying to talk about the situation in general. I don't have many friends, and even then, I hate to burden family with the BS that suddenly has been attached to me. This is a long story, so I'll try to summarize basic context for the sake of brevity and time. I'm a woman in my mid-20s in the very rainy PNW. I married my high school sweetheart, just last year in fact. I moved out to a very rural mountain town with my partner. I followed him to a new position. His father owns the business, half with his father-in-law's brother. After several months of fruitless job searches, father-in-law needed a housekeeper and I still needed a job. I trust you can connect the dots. By the way, this comes from Fiji Chain on the r/OK Storytime subreddit. So for the sake of privacy, I will not say what state or town as I am upset with the situation, but do not want to cause any harm to the business. I apologize in advance. I am autistic and haven't really had anyone to talk to about this other than my close family and one other friend. In the beginning, it was just bathrooms. We had clear set boundaries that I was more than happy with and a light schedule that matched the amount of work given. As the first year progresses, I bring us from a 3-star in cleanliness to a near perfect 5. It's mentioned by nearly every guest and often in happy reviews. I get engaged and father-in-law starts acting up in weird ways, making subtle jabs of frustration about certain employees, pulling me off my job to add projects to my itinerary, pulling maintenance away from their work consistently, micromanaging me after previously telling me to tell him to F off if he was overdoing it, and then being upset when I didn't do my usual amount of work to the absolute best quality when consistently distracting me and pulling me away from work. I do my best to ignore it. I bring it up to his son and my manager. We insisted I have a different manager to keep a work balance. I was totally fine with this. They tell me I'm doing great right. He's just over managing because he's retiring, etc., etc. So I do what I can to move on. As months go by, the list gets longer and longer and longer. The maintenance requests I put in are usually going unanswered. Trying to order supplies for the upkeep of a now large clubhouse, 2 Airbnbs, several bathrooms, employee spaces, 2 laundry rooms, and whatever awful mold they leave behind for me to deal with after insisting on an employee lunch that they promise we will handle. The wedding week comes and I'm actively preparing to be wed to this man's son, and he tries to get me to go clean his mouse-infested RV because he's just so busy. This was where the cracks really began sinking in. I have been faithful and loving to this man's son since I was 15. I was marrying him in less than 7 days, but he's really trying to get me to agree to doing this for him. The man had a whole year to figure this out, and the week before is when he decides to handle it and give it to the bride? Absolutely not. Around this time, I had begun to put in serious boundaries. I love him, but needed to start putting myself first. I was so tired from helping clean the business as the only housekeeper, save for a teen I got help with on certain days that only did 2 bathrooms before going home, which is fine. It's exactly what we hired him for. And planning a wedding that I was burning the candle at both ends, and then lighting another candle, then lighting the other end of that candle, and so on. I start taking this job even more seriously than before. After all, if I'm going to skip my honeymoon for the family business, surely I should put as much into it as I can to really show how much it means to me. Well, they start mentioning putting me on salary, which renews my hope, and I start really knuckling down. Ooh, so they're like putting the carrot in front of you. Hey, look, salary. I'm bringing in new products for the store, researching local hospitality and hiking trails, pricing out furniture for outdoor areas, and doing rate comparisons. I did that despite all this crap. I really do love this place. Winter comes and goes. Spring hits and we are on the ground running. It is work constantly. No time to rest. No time to stop. Going. Adjusting as much as I can when I can, except now. I am finding out after months of mentioning certain projects/concerns that customers are having complaints. I start looking at the project list I had made them and almost nothing had been done.
Oh my
so
God.
Now the projects were problems and the concerns were even bigger problems.
Oh my gosh. She's literally the only one doing any work at this company, it sounds like.
Sounds like she's on top of everything.
Yeah.
It's hard whenever you're on top of everything, but you can't be on top of other people doing the things they're supposed to do.
Right. Like, this is like, it's a team effort, you know? And she's doing as much as she can, doing all these little things. She should be the manager,
That's
think.
what I'm saying. I'm like, if I was a dad and I had 2 cents in my brain, I'd be like, yeah, she should be manager.
Be like, someone's got to get the work done.
Exactly.
Those customer complaints for Airbnbs and stuff like that, those are important.
Those are so important.
It works with like the trust and everything that new customers need to book the places.
Yes, exactly. So now the projects were bigger problems, like sewer pipes backing up, a broken vacuum that no one can fix. We aren't appliance repair techs, several janky coin wash machines that jam, among other things, strange sewer smell in certain areas of the property, or even the time they forgot to close the water pipe to a washer and flooded a bathroom 3 separate times. The first 2 times that happened when housekeeping had already cleaned / when it was done. The third time was when I saw it in action when a customer decided, heaven forbid, clean their whitey tidies. Not only am I fielding guest complaints, concerns, and general forest questions, but now I am doing basic plumbing, inspection ducts, and filters, assisting guests when hosting events, but also trying to make education-driven adjustments, such as having a reading corner of the store where kids can learn about the local environment and water table. All the managers decided we wanted a fish tank to attract customers and kids to the back of the store more. There, we have books for the kids, and the parents got a look at our coolers with more adult items. While this is one of the main examples, it's not only one. See, she's thinking ahead. Not only is she's like, okay, I am doing this because this is what needs to be done. I'm doing this because this will then drive more business.
She's thinking like a good employee, a good manager.
Okay.
What?
OP, this is what you got to do now. You need to mention what business this is, and everyone that is watching will then go to that business. Write a review about how great you are. My dog was stuck in the tree and she helped get it out.
Here you go.
OP helped my clean do this. OP gave me you just comment about you and you get to become the manager.
Another route you could do is actually talking to whoever the current manager is. And because maybe she can rather than
I just think she needs to be a manager.
well, yeah, absolutely. But I wonder if she can some places have managers of different things. So I wonder if she can do something like that where she talks to the guy and is like, hey, I'm setting out these tasks, but they're not really getting done. I would like to stay on top of these people and make sure that they're getting these things done. I think that would be a great task manager position.
Looking into teen club ideas, have an espresso stand on property, a smoking area to reduce complaints/concerns, etc. And God help the goldfish. From almost a full year from January to September, it was nonstop jokes about it being ugly. If you know the hobby, you know bacteria blooms happen in the beginning stages of where an ecosystem is starting. Then being pointless, then a drain, then bait for local fishermen. All while this is happening, my list is getting longer and longer. Father-in-law wants me to learn the reservation system too. They want me to take the after hours phone. I told him no, it was causing me panic attacks. I started doing 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. shifts. There's literally no other way to do the nearly 50 tasks they want me to manage without having more time. Less energy, more time. I was doing that for several weeks before I got told to stop. I made a list of everything, brought it to my manager. I explained I can't do all of this without the team or the time. She tells me I'm doing great. Don't worry and keep doing what I can. She would work the laundry, I would get the place clean, and eventually I'd get a lunch break. My health is deteriorating. I'm getting injured at work. My vision randomly blacking out on multiple occasions.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I start a pretty deep depression from all the exhaustion and the constant jokes at expense of my ideas, work, or experience. Yeah.
Oh my
It
goodness.
gets a little worse after this. It sounds like on top of the autism, you want to do you have this one layer of disability of you want to make sure everything is done correctly, which is for this job, you're doing great.
Absolutely.
But it's coming to a point of you're breaking yourself because of it. Because one, your team is not helping you out and you feel obligated to take care of that because your team's not doing that.
Right. And it's so nice that you care so much about this place. You really do want it to be a good job. But I think you need to care more about yourself and really take care of yourself. And that includes, talking to these people about this stuff and setting some boundaries of hey, I can only work this amount of time. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a family business. Do you think you'd be able to do that? Talk to them as a family member and be hey, I'm having a really hard time in my personal life now because of how much work I have. You could. I think that's a good point. It's if you're in the right family, they'd understand that. Yeah. But I think the manager's hey, don't worry about this. You're doing good. But OP she wants what's best for the company, but no one is doing it. What would be great is she was the manager and had an awesome team behind her that could execute all this stuff. That I think would be perfect for OP. Absolutely.
It gets worse. And then my great grandma passed and I had to go for about 2 weeks. 2 weeks prior, a new manager had been hired and was doing some consulting for father-in-law. In those 2 weeks, a new manager came on and began a very aggressive restructuring. I was told she was my manager now, to stop talking to maintenance entirely, only needed to use the board apparently, don't hang out at the front desk. I would wait for my mail sometimes, or I would check in with my manager and look at the schedule. Other times I was actually taking a break for once. I said, okay, I'm told to be happy and supportive of the change, to really help ease everyone in on this transition period. In those 2 weeks, everything's changed. Maintenance wasn't talking to anyone. Certain employees just up and left. Oof. My OG manager was let go, and father-in-law's joke picked up even more. I'm called to a meeting with father-in-law and new manager, and I'm told it's just a quick one, nothing super important. One of these very serious boundaries I set with father-in-law was any meetings he would be conducting, his son had to be there. I didn't have anyone else there that could support me. I get to go to the meetings and he's just there. It's not just the new manager, it's both. And I tell him he needs to get his son the F in here immediately. Then I step outside. My husband gets there. He tells me not to worry, that his dad told him that they were just having a check-in meeting and shouldn't take long, which matters because I was in the middle of work when they called this important meeting. I go in. His father, with a smile on his face, explains to me that your salary will go through the end of this month. Then after that, we'll switch you to hourly. After that, we'll rent the B&B so we really won't need. And then the trailing off begins. My husband is processing and I ask, so essentially what you're saying is after X, I have no job? Yes, that'll be correct. My husband immediately is confused, telling father-in-law that makes no sense. They had already discussed this previously. We have no other housekeepers. They let my assistant go same day. Father-in-law looks at him smiling and says, oh, don't worry. We already talked about it with maintenance. I always told myself if something like this happened that I would be a lady about it. I asked if there was anything else. I was told no and excused myself. I was so upset. My husband had to go finish the B&B I was cleaning while I walked 500 feet to the place where we live on property to go have a little mental B to myself. When husband returns, he tells me his dad has no idea how much you do and we just need to show him and he'll see this wasn't the right decision. Let's just say from several past experiences, I had my doubts, but this is my husband and I love him. So if this was what he wants, then fine. We go in the next day with nearly a 10-page document and a small half-page doc of my original responsibilities where he reads off half the front page, laughs it off, and sets it aside. Looks at me in the eyes and says, you know, believe it or not, before you got here, I ran this place myself, so I know what goes into it. First, he did not have the same amount of work when he started compared to what I had. But additionally, I didn't see why that should dismiss everything I do around the work. So I start asking if there was something seriously wrong with my work. As I had been told for weeks up until that point, I was doing great. And it was just an adjustment period. Well, I'm autistic and I effing hated the adjustment period. What did I do? I shut up and got over it. And then they said jump. I said, how high? Well, last November, the shower walls were disgusting. I told your manager, but I bet she didn't tell you because I had maintenance do it. Last November, we were out of the state a majority of the month. And then we had Thanksgiving. I warned them months in advance while I was out. Someone would have to keep up with the bathrooms. It was at this point I realized we were arguing in circles. He made up his mind, and if he was citing a complaint from a year ago, then this clearly isn't about me. I tell him, I'm done here. And he starts getting upset until I look at him and say something along the lines of, I thought you saw something in me, before leaving in tears.
Aww.
Was that bratty? Sure, but ladies don't start fights. We finish them. However, that wasn't the finishing move I thought it was. As my father-in-law proceeds to chase me out of the office, yelling at me in front of other employees about how I just can't leave in the middle of a conversation, I do not take being chased by a shouting man lightly, even if this is my father-in-law. So I turned around and yelled at him and told him, leave me the F alone. Well, that was a surprise to him. I hate shouting. He backed off and I ran home. Ever since then, I've been avoiding this man and applying to jobs around my area. My Christmas wish was an actual return call after many applications. I can't leave my house without running into him. I go through town only for the occasional drive-through coffee or a very early morning grocery store run. Otherwise, I hide at home applying to jobs while he circles the property. Well, today, I got a gift from him and this was why I'm here. A Christmas card with some cash in it signed, your evil father-in-law, with his name underlined. And admittedly, I had to leave a family event to walk and breathe. This was all just a joke to him when I set boundaries with him and he trampled on them over and over. When he chased me out of the office, or when he told me a team of 4 men with power tools doing my job are just better, don't you agree? Despite me being only one person, does he think he can wipe that away with $200 and a grin? Just $200, dude? Come on.
Yeah, wow.
Come on. Yikes, but you can grin and wince at more stories like this on your favorite podcast platforms. Just search up OK Storytime on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to, and we're there with how many stories?
Countless.
Honestly.
Thousands.
We lost count.
Yeah, we're pumping out stories
we were numbering
every
them.
day, man.
Yeah, we were numbering them and we lost count and stopped numbering them. So
I mean, at that
I
point.
think it was 1900 the last time.
Wow.
Yeah. But before we continue, will $200 make this all go away?
No, not at all. I mean, running and chasing, that's scary, man. That's scary. That's tough because I do see his joke. I feel like I know people that would make that kind of joke. It's like, your evil father-in-law. Like, that would be like his way of apologizing. But with how much it was like clearly affecting her and like hard for her, I think it definitely needs a bit more than that. Maybe more conversation. Like, I wonder what the fiance could do or the husband. You
I
know?
think the husband's at a point where he has to work there, or they don't have any income. So he's stuck too.
Yeah.
With his dad.
And he might have like a complicated relationship with his dad.
He
too,
probably
so-
does.
Yeah.
I know this is long, and I appreciate the patience to anyone willing to read it. I just got done with a family lunch the other day where I was told I need to get past this and I need to work on it. He's gonna be your father-in-law forever. What about your kids? What about your kids? Honestly, I feel like I'm going crazy. Am I really overreacting? Because of my autism and my ADHD, I can be sensitive sometimes, but I really thought this is more than the RSD. Would he be out of line to return his gift with a snickerdoodle in the shape of a wiener? It's literally my only idea right now. OP, whatever the Lord puts on your heart, I think that sounds like a fantastic
That's
idea.
really funny.
No, if this literally, if this happened to anyone and they were not, praised for the amount of hard work they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is not about your neurodivergency whatsoever.
Yeah, I get that. I think it, adds another level to it probably because of, sensitivity, but it doesn't totally discount it.
Yeah.
Like it's not, it definitely does affect work and stuff because like I have ADHD and it's like you can't, I would hold really high standards to myself with like schoolwork and stuff that I couldn't reach. And it was like, I was so hard on myself when I couldn't meet those like unrealistic standards. So I feel like that was definitely a part of it with this work, I'm sure. And then with everyone else's expectations towards you too, and then them not validating you for all that stuff, like that's definitely something to be accounted for. Those disabilities or differences like do affect the situation and it emphasizes the situation, but it doesn't at all mean that you were like in the wrong. It's like completely the opposite. Like I think they should be more sensitive to you and more accommodating to you with all that stuff. Yeah.
I've seen that story in this episode. So
And the episode?
Yep.
All right.
So if you love us, make sure to subscribe.
We love you.
And
See you tomorrow.